Yeah.
Let me put on my headset. Yeah, this isn't even the only Dark Horse presents issue 24 because the other Dark Horse presents issue 24 is from like 1988. And I guess they just started renumbering them again at some point. I can't imagine why.
They just started printing the first Dark Horse
Aside from the
24
fact
was probably
one of
where
one of the massive problems inherent with the entire comics industry is that if you get a fucking comic book where it's issue like 200 something, you know you're missing 200 issues of something that you can't fucking go back on because comic stores cannot physically hold them anymore. And if you go back to issue number one, it becomes too expensive to be worth buying. So
because
they can't
the
have,
first issue was worth like 40, 50, sometimes even $100.
yeah, sometimes $1 million in the case of Action Comics number one. But so a lot of companies tend
Which
to
you
renumber.
also were able to buy. We own Action Comics number
Yes,
one,
that's right. I own Action Comics number one on Comixology.
and it cost $1.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I didn't have to pay $1 million to read Action Comics number one. All I had to do is pay $1 on Comixology, and I can read Action Comics number one if that's all that's important. Which is it? Is it all that's important? Is the story the actual meat, or is it a collector's item you're hoping to put yourself through college with
Because
after
let's
70
face it,
years?
we actually tried to read it, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's boring. It's dated. It's
It's
very
what you
old
would
fashioned.
expect from a comic book from the 1930s.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not gonna say oh it's a terrible comic, but it's a 1930s comic. Really, really doesn't hold up.
Does not stand the test of time.
No.
0 out of 10.
On
Best of
an
best of
objective
Ron
level, though,
score.
on a subjective level, yes, you can absolutely say it stands the test of time because on a subjective level, any shit is great because it's completely subjective. But
And the guy who made Pet Rocks made $1 million.
he
So,
made $1 million.
so from that exact same standard,
It's
the Pet
called
Rock
a
has
jump
stood
to
the test of time.
conclusions, Matt.
A jump to conclusions, man.
But yeah,
See, good things can happen.
as he's in a neck brace, he should be in a chokehold. This my
Full
favorite line of
wheelchair.
him. My favorite line of his actually is like when going to the unemployment line with those scumbags, and he's just fucking suddenly furious about just the idea of the thought of the talk of being in the unemployment line or something.
Well, that's also what happens if you try and get a real square job. It's like,
Yes,
oh, I've been working here for 29 years. I almost have my pension.
they
You're fired.
they threw him away like a useless toy. But
One of the other wonderful, wonderful songs by Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo, actually, almost every song they've ever done is great. Every song. It's kind of
Ever,
bizarre.
well,
And
it's fucking Danny Elfman.
yeah, Danny Elfman. This just sounds like Danny
Back
Elfman.
when, Danny Elfman. This just sounds like it's back when he gave a shit. I guess I don't know. Whatever.
It sounds more like a pill plate spinning music. It's yet another. We've jumped like 20 references from fucking from Office Space to the Final Sacrifice, the MS-2 episode starring Zap Rowsdower as himself and
How
Troy.
many levels of irony are we
Yes,
operating on?
we that we perpetually exist on. The levels of irony that we perpetually exist on are so many that they are imperceptible and appear to go back down to zero again. No
It
one can
breaks
tell
through the quantum substratum of
of
infinite
levels of irony.
universes.
We've reversed the polarity of irony
So speaking, we've bounced a graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish
of irony.
of of irony.
What was the name of
Speaking
that?
of,
Wasn't that band was called Voltaire? That did
uh, yeah,
they did a bunch of
that did
songs about Star Trek.
several Star Trek parody songs, novelty parody. songs about Star Trek,
Not
which
to
are
be
great.
confused with Neo Sorskin, who did Shatner Roll, which is a great song about Star Trek also.
It's great. It's great.
Scrape.
So on that subject, obviously, we're going to be talking about Dark Horse
Yeah.
Presents issue
Well,
24.
one of the reasons why we were jumping around topics is because we were talking about this is issue 24 of Dark Horse Presents, but it's the second issue of 24 of Dark Horse Presents because when they started renumbering, it was one of the main
I'm sure
topics I
there's
wanted to
been.
talk
I'm
about.
sure there's probably been other. They probably the first issue probably had the first issue of Sin City in it because you were mentioning
It
Dark
was
Horse Presents is where Sin City premiered.
well, actually, I think Sin City was more around early 90s, but yeah, it was about certainly closer to that
Basically,
than this is.
basically every issue since then has been issue 24
Yes.
because fuck the fans.
But that's the thing, you can't do that. You can't have issue number 200, 300, 400, and on like that. You can't keep numbering them as they were because it no longer works unless you kind of have that sort of who gives a shit
Well,
clout like Marvel
if you
does.
change the fucking if you change it to like volume, if it's like, oh, we're actually on volume 8, so this is volume 8 issue
Well,
3,
the
that
problem
makes
is
sense.
it's you can't make comics that are continuous if you're going to sell them in a physical store. You can only do that if you sell them digitally. And a lot of people, even people in like the whole Comicsgate crowd, is terrified of the idea of digital comics. In a way for good reason, but the fact is, the future is still going to be digital comics. And they come up, I've seen like Diversity in Comics come up with some really stupid reasons. I hate to admit it, but he has some really dumb reasons for why he doesn't like digital comics or why he imagines people don't like digital comics. Of course,
Are you
people are going to
saying
agree
that
with him
there?
about it.
Are you saying that he has invalid reasons?
He has valid reasons. Well, it's the same as fucking insisting you have a cell phone that doesn't take pictures anymore. It's like, why wouldn't you? Why would you have a cell phone that doesn't take pictures anymore if you're going to have a cell phone at all?
Not
And
unless you got it for free from the government,
yeah, exactly.
which
That would be
is
the only
perfectly
reason.
valid. That is a valid reason.
Yes, that's a valid reason, but
So
that
yeah,
doesn't really
basically,
apply.
comics have been waiting 100 years for this era of for comics to actually
Yeah,
finally
it's
work.
sort of an infinite fucking unbound era where you don't have to physically go to the store. Now, I do agree that comic stores should still exist, and they can. The comic stores can be thriving again if they just make American comics the way Japanese fucking comics people make Japanese comics. I don't even want to say manga, because hey, they're called Japanese comics. Get over it, faggots.
Mangoes.
But the
Which just makes me think of that fucking SNL skit where that guy who is gay, but he says he's not gay. But I've never seen
the
someone
guy just seems gay all the time. He says he's
I've
not
never
gay, but he
seen
just
someone who
seems really
says he's
gay.
not gay who acted so gay.
You mean Chris Kattan? His character
Yes,
of Mango, who's like supposed to be a retarded monkey boy, he's always jumping on those attractive women. He's like, oh, I get it, you're really straight. He's not straight.
and everyone loves him, especially fucking
Everyone's in love with him, especially women with big tits.
well,
Who'd have
especially
thought?
what was it, Christopher fucking not Christopher Hitchens,
Christopher Nolan. Christopher Hackle.
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken loves him more than anyone. The but yeah, that was one of the other topics I sort of wanted to I put in a note file is that
Saturday Night Live.
comic books really can't exist the way they've existed anymore, at least not to the degree. And you know what? I think this Dark Horse Presents this issue 24. It's actually like issue 24 from 2013. That's the actual date on it.
It says best anthology 2012. Yeah, you
Well,
know.
that's on the cover.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, I'm trying to
The
fucking
inside
find.
cover,
Yeah,
like
20,
page one, the credits or
yeah,
copyright page.
2013. Yeah,
I wish they would make it easier to see. To be honest, if I was doing comics, I would put the year and the month of release, probably the day too, on the fucking cover, along with the names. They don't put They only started putting names on covers like within the past 10 years. It goes to show comic books are still trying to figure out how they themselves are supposed to be done. And I think Japanese comics know how to sell them the best, but they don't necessarily know how to make them the best. And there's a lot of topic divergences we can go on from here, but we should just, I guess, talk about the Dark Horse Presents on its
We should
own.
probably stop making references to things and building levels of irony beyond the beyond.
Beyond the Beyond. But yeah, so the
That's definitely going to fold into the first story in here,
well, you know,
Blackout.
one other thing I can mention is that Dark Horse Presents is basically a small, like 50-page anthology of 8-page comics. It's like 8 pages of a comic story, and then it stops. Another 8 pages of a different comic story by different creators and different artists, that kind of shit, and so on. You know, for about 50 pages. So you open it up in this anthology, and they can become something else. Like that's how Sin City got started, was from Dark Horse Presents. In fact, I have the Dark
Of
Horse
course, well,
Presents with Sin
that's
City
Frank
on it.
Miller.
Yeah, the first.
That's
Yeah,
fucking
that's the
Frank
thing.
Miller.
It's Frank Miller. That's gonna. So it's gonna take like a creative, unique artist who maybe is completely insane, but at least has ideas that are different and divergent. One thing you definitely can't say about social justice creators: they don't have any creative, different, divergent ideas. They have boring, bland, stock, safe ideas that will never be noticed by anyone.
Well, still, then at the same time, though, I've already read through this issue, and man, is it boring!
Yeah, it's a collection of boring comic ideas, really. Sometimes
It's a
good
lot
art,
of
but
some of them. There's I think the first one, Blackout, was probably the most interesting one,
and
at least
still
as
not
far as I
that.
remember.
Yeah, it was
You
basically
you submitted a fucking story
a
to them.
couple. Yeah, basically what I did was about fucking I would say about 2010. I started to really think about writing comics for real. I've been doing me and you both have been making comics since the early 90s. We're basically our own favorite comics creators. Those were the comics we loved growing up, our own. And so we made our own favorite comics. We are our favorite artists, our favorite writers for comics, and we loved comics, and our greatest influences and inspirations was us.
Ourselves.
Yeah, we didn't really read comics growing up. We just made them.
Well,
So,
if anything, my biggest inspiration when it comes to comics is fucking
rape.
Sam Kinison.
Yes, Sam Kinnison's a
Sam
great
Kinison.
inspiration. Mystery Science
He's a great
Theater.
comic.
Actually, Mystery Science Theater, I think, came along about the time we didn't want to make our own comics anymore.
And they
But
all have a background in stand-up comic.
yeah, about 7, 8 years passed after we stopped making comics as like young teenagers, and then I actually started making a
I
dumb
don't
little
consider
webcomic on
myself.
my own.
I don't actually consider myself to be the best artist.
No, we weren't the best artists. We were just our favorite artists at the time when we
I
were
was
like
probably
12.
I could have been on my way to becoming a great artist if I had kept at it.
Yeah, if you had started even when you were 20,
I
it
started. I sketched that like a thing of the fucking Starship
Voyager.
Voyager.
Yeah, I remember you
Right when
did
Voyager.
like a trace of Voyager, and I was like, "Wow, that's awesome! You should draw," because you were way better
It
at
was
the drawing than I was at that point.
yeah. It was pretty good. I did a pretty good job.
Oh, you know what was a huge influence on both of us also? Contra 3: The Alien Wars. Huge comics influence on us.
Well, what you mean is video games.
Oh,
Video games. We could not make ourselves.
yes. So we made comics of video games. Sometimes other video games, although also drew like video game maps for fantasy video games we wished we could play.
Yeah, I had like put together this concept. Don't We'll not mention the fucking name
Not that it
because
matters, but yeah.
someday in the future, maybe someday, I will go and I will make that video game.
Yes.
But for right now, it was basically just like it was like if Battletoads didn't have the shitty instant death shit.
Yeah, it was more like Battletoads if it were an adventure, sort of ish, like
If it
Chrysalis.
was the potential fun promise that was actually offered by like the first mission where
Yeah, with like
you beat
character
a
interaction.
dragon.
We were
You
actually
beat the
putting
shit out
character
of a
interaction
dragon
into
with
side
stick.
scrollers before most games ever even thought of it.
We invented that concept
Yes, well,
before
except for
anyone.
Zelda 2, except Zelda 2 sucked too, actually.
Zelda 2 is a bad game.
Yes, it's a bad game.
We
But
had
we can
made something.
only based on objective fucking analysis, which only we are capable of and no one else on the planet is, because they're all faggots.
We're just so far ahead. We're just so beyond.
We're so beyond, we're Star Trek beyond, while everyone else is into darkness.
That's how shitty everyone else is. They just remind me of the worst Star Trek movie ever.
Aside from, well, not five, because to be honest, in retrospect, five is actually
No,
better. To be honest, I still
five
think
is definitely a
Nemesis is
better
the
movie.
worst.
I'd say, well, maybe.
I
Okay.
prefer five to Nemesis easily. I would rewatch five
Yes.
again because it
Yeah.
it has
Well,
fucking what does
compared to Star
God need
Wars,
with his non-chip? You don't go
compared to
asking the
Star,
Almighty for his ID chip. That's good. That's fun stuff. It's interesting. It's unique for Star
it's a
Trek or
nice,
for any
it's a nice
movie.
adventure.
You wouldn't see
Fucking
that in any
so
other movie.
Star Wars, the
Yes.
fucking Star Wars franchise
Ugh.
is the most overrated
Yes.
shit.
You'll
I
never
was just
you'll never see things that are you'll never see things in the Star Wars movies that are as good as the stuff in Star Trek 5 even.
yes,
Star
I
Trek
was just
5
mentioning
is better
that
than the Star Wars movies.
the most underrated video game of all time remains Fallout 3.
Fallout
Not
3, maybe also Fallout 4.
not because it's the greatest game or anything, but just because people from a certain faggy website
Yeah,
tried to boycott it.
most people don't know what fucking underrated even means. They don't know that underrated doesn't mean the best. It means it's something that most people look down on when it's not nearly as bad, or possibly when it's just good. But
And
it's
they're so wrong.
people don't recognize how good it is.
We're the only ones who understand this.
Yeah, we're the
This
only
is
ones who can really
fundamental
judge the
truth.
stuff on an objective level because we're so great. Did I
Nobody
mention
else
how
seems to
great we
be
are?
capable of being objective, except for us,
Yeah,
because we're just smarter than them. We're just smarter than everyone else.
we're beyond darkness. Even that's holy shit. That's like
Be,
just a whole new level.
oh, holy shit!
So the
Holy
first
shit!
comic in this,
Actually, before the first comic
oh,
is, I just noticed I didn't even fucking pay attention to it the first time. I just noticed this is the fucking what is this big guy in Rusty. This is that fucking cartoon that SF Debris reviewed like 2 episodes of.
oh yeah, that's right. Not the Goon, but I think because the Goon is Dark Horse too.
Yeah, no, I don't fucking. I'm not sure who this is. It's something by Mike Richardson, and he talks about fucking Geoff Darrow illustration.
Is it? Yeah, it's just called Big Guy and Rusty, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what and there was a cartoon of it.
Yeah,
It
the
was like
animated.
a
Yeah, SF Debris reviewed it. I have to really stop myself from calling it SF Debris because just too many levels of
SF
irony
Debris.
sometimes just makes it sound retarded.
In this case, not even references that we're making due to our autism. It's just us saying things that
That's
are
quite autistic. That's pretty
more
autistic,
interesting. We're being too neurodiverse.
which is bad. Actually, it's not good.
It's the fucking dumbest fucking thing.
But wait,
It's
that
the
means.
dumbest thing to call anything.
But is it ironically dumb?
Neurodiverse.
So you see, we were only pretending.
We're being so ironic.
We're only pretending. What's your excuse, rest of the world?
Rest of the world, go fuck yourselves. It does say here, Dark Horse presents number 24, Volume 2, 181. So this is issue 181.
Apparently, who the fuck even knows anymore, to be honest? But yeah, I guess so. But it doesn't say Volume 2 on the cover, of course, because
No.
they're like, oh, we gotta make it look like it's close to issue 1 so it doesn't look like you're missing too much. But issue 24 really doesn't matter anymore, and it's Dark Horse Presents. It's an anthology, so it doesn't matter anymore.
And of course they learned, this is like something that they learned over the last several years, is like, oh, number ones sell a shitload more than anything else.
And again, that's only because physical comic stores kind of require that. Because if you go to a physical comic store and you see a number 1, you think to yourself, oh, this is where a story's starting. But the thing is, with most superhero comics, you buy an issue number 1, and it's not actually where the story's starting anymore. They just know that a number 1 sells more, and that's why it sells more, and that's why they'll keep doing it. Even though
Kinda
it's
like
now
apes.
a lie.
There's an ape on the cover of this comic, and the comic sold unusually well. So let's just put apes on everything. There's just fucking apes
Yeah, I
everywhere.
think
Apes are
American
popping.
comics seriously have no clue how to bring in readers. They only know how to sort of keep in the people who simply refuse to leave, like, out of desperation to read some fucking cape shit. Like, the people who want to read cape shit, they're desperate to not leave, and some of them are starting to, but they will come right back if you just promise them the same old shit, which is fine, and that's another topic for another time, too. But,
At some point, there's a point where the business takes over the art, and it becomes unartistic. And once you've done that, you kind of don't really have a point. You might as well go and fucking sell potato cakes on the
Mango
street.
does
Go
both,
and
though.
fucking own a roach coach.
The Japanese mangers actually managed to do both because they combined the business. They basically turned popularity into the decision of what comics will continue or not, because they all sell through anthologies, basically.
Well, they're a lot more careful too.
Yeah,
They're being a little more smart with it.
in a way, they create through desperation. Like, if you don't make the comic that's really gonna suck people's dicks, then your comic gets erased forever, and you
Yeah,
might not even
they
make it
certainly
back into
don't
the
make
industry.
they don't pump out tons and tons of Seju shit for like mud diversity cred.
Yeah, they don't care. Because they know that won't sell. They know if you want to fucking get the fuck asses in seats basically of comics, you have to throw in big tit decapitations. And that's good.
You gotta have titties, you gotta have blood balloons,
You have
and
to
then you
have,
actually have to preferably also try and get a story in there.
yeah, in a way that, and at least a formulaic story. But again, that's an issue for why manga is pretty much better than anime or American comics. But and better than anime. But yeah, so the Dark Horse presents the first story. The first 8 pages are Blackout, which is like a superhero story about a guy who can sort of phase in between. It's like the cloaked phase in that one Star Trek TNG episode where Geordi and Ensign Ro thought they were dead, but they were simply
Basically,
cloak phased.
it's like a combination of that and the game Singularity, where it's like you have a gauntlet, you have the time gauntlet, where it just allows you to teleport between time periods. It's basically what it's like.
I was gonna say, didn't the the Titanfall 2 single player have that aspect too? But
Well, Timefall, but this is like the time gauntlet. He's got the time suit with the time gauntlet,
yeah, and
and
it
he's
starts off,
activating his time powers to punch people in the face.
yeah, and
It's
that's
basically this.
out of 8 pages. That's pretty much all that happens. Is he phases in between things, then he unphases to punch people, and then he's like, "Where am I? What's going on?" And it's written in that very typical American quippy.
Yeah, here's your first note. This is page. Well, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
This is like
literally
page four
just
or five
grabbed a fucking black permanent marker and just started writing on the comic.
because this is going in the trash
Yeah,
after
because
we're
it's going
done
in the
reviewing
garbage
it.
afterwards, so I really don't care.
But it says right here, just awful quips.
What are some of the awful quips? Because you're the only one with a comic in front of you right now.
Yeah, let's see. It's he's phased into the shadow universe or whatever, and he fell through the floor or something. I don't think I'll ever get used to this. Wherever this is, exit stage down. And then he's falling through the air and he teleports into the
What
thing.
does he say right after exit stage down, though?
You're now free to move about the cabin. By the way, ow. Because
That's like
he hit the
three
ground.
bad lines in a row.
It's like Joss Whedon dialogue.
Except, to be
It's
honest, it's
terrible.
sub Joss Whedon. I think what people refer to sub Joss Whedon dialogue as Bendis speak, to reference Brian
Whoa.
Michael Bendis, who I guess is supposed to be trying to ape Joss Whedon, who's supposed to be trying to ape. Again, I forget his name. The fucking guy who wrote the Social
Shane
Network.
Shane Black. Oh, not okay. Yeah, not
No,
Shane
because
Black.
Shane Black's good.
That's right. Social Network. Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin. Yeah, that sort of Aaron Sorkin's smart dialogue. I mean, his dialogue is smart, so that's good.
It's smug liberal dialogue.
Yes, but I mean some of it's smart too, where people are trying to think like two steps ahead of the other person they're in a conversation with, and sometimes the people are like, "What?" And like if you watch The Social Network, it's smart in that way, and it's really interesting. But as far as fucking David Fincher movies, I prefer fucking Zodiac, which just has more realistic, less movie-ish dialogue, where it sounds like people who are really talking to each other in real terms and just phrases and just ways instead of trying to sound all smart. But so yeah,
Especially, in a fucking comic book, dialogue is extremely important
yeah,
because otherwise it's just carried on the visuals.
yeah, a lot of people I think want to sound like they're writing smart or quippy or clever to sort of pull in the reader. And for me, as soon as I read, like that's on page what, 3 of this comic?
Yeah, it's page 5,
Yeah,
something
but as
like
soon
that.
as I read it, I'm immediately checked out. I'm like, no,
Well,
this sucks. I'm not going to like
that's
this.
exactly what you got to be careful about when you're writing the fucking dialogue. Is you
Yeah.
can't make it smarmy
Yeah,
or
and I have
fucking
to admit, writing
douchey.
dialogue can be one of the hardest things, specifically because of that. You want it to sound like clever and quippy, but you don't want to be that, which means it's better to avoid it. And and the thing is, if you make it realistic, it can really come off as boring.
Otherwise, it's going to end up. The worst thing you can do is make yourself end up sounding like a GameFAQs article from
Yeah, like
like
you're doing a
fucking
book report on your
from
fucking
1999, where you're throwing in jokes left and right, and it's just like, just tell me about the fucking secret.
yes.
Where is the Atma sword? I don't fucking care.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care about your
I
wacky,
don't care
like,
about
hey,
your
what do you think
secret.
is going on in Shadow's head right now? I don't give a shit. Tell me where the dagger is, cunt.
Yeah, where's the fucking this secret hidden commentary? You're providing your snarky commentary about the story. Just fucking tell me, how do I get across the map? Where is the cave exit?
Yeah, a lot of comics writers want to act like, hey, because I'm the writer, I gotta be clever and show it off. That's exactly what happened to Penny Arcade, by the way. They're fucking, once the writer, I think Bald, instead of Pig-like, who's the shitty artist, but once Bald started seeing himself as the writer of the biggest webcomic, he started thinking he was an important writer and really smart, so he's like, I'm gonna put in all these fancy words, I'm gonna get my thesaurus out. And he just came off like a pretentious faggot. Well,
Finally, a
probably because
chance to use my
is.
college degree.
Yes, I have a college degree in English, you see. I was an English major. Yeah, pretty much. That's what
Pretty much
Bald
makes
of
me
Penny
smarter
Arcade
than
says.
it pretty much makes me smarter than anyone else. That is also what a lot of people who have college degrees actually believe.
And they
Can you
talk like
believe
that.
what are they, gay?
But yeah, so people, people who say they're the writer need to make it look like it's very visible, their writing skills, their chops, when really some of the best writers in comics can go several pages without any dialogue at all or captions or any of that shit. And
Yeah,
that's the
it's
best
kind of
way
like
if
that.
you just let the visuals tell the story. Because it's a visual medium. In fact, it's such a visual medium that has no audio at all. It's the only visual medium that has no audio.
It's kind of like that economy of storytelling.
Yeah. And that can be really tricky to pull off too. In fact, you read this Dark Horse Presents, and this, the Blackout, the first story in this, is very loose, so not a lot happens. Because it's supposed to be action heavy, but to be honest, American comics really don't know how to do action very well. We went over this a lot in our review of Delicious in Dungeon, a fucking comic about cooking, a cooking comic from Japan that has better action than all the comics in this issue of Dark Horse Presents.
Is that something that they should be ashamed of?
Yes, yes, it is. But anyways, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the first story, Blackout, pretty generic.
The problem, I would say the biggest problem with this, and probably with the format, is just it ends before it gets interesting. It's just like, oh, he's teleporting between the
To be honest,
layers
I
of
don't think they would ever
reality.
become interesting either, though.
Yeah, no, it's like,
They're
will
written
this
by a lot
actually
of
even
people who are
continue?
afraid to become interesting. And to become
It does
interesting,
say that there's a
sometimes you
part
have to
one,
really just go over the fucking line.
art by Mika Kenishiro.
Oh, is this the second comic?
Nope. this is Blackout, but
Oh.
it says part one. The art isn't really that bad, but I mean,
Yeah, the art's
it's
good.
nothing really happens in it, and just as it seems like something's about to happen, it ends.
Yeah, like he teleports and he phases into a room and he's like, "Where's this crazy room?" And then all of a sudden there's another person there who's like, "I know who you are." It's like, "Oh no," and then it just ends. It's after 8 pages, which
It's like, yeah, it looks like Lady Scientist. She points a gun at him, and it's like, oh, it's about time you showed up.
it's
It's
about
like, oh,
time you
what's going to
shit.
happen? It doesn't even say the end or to be continued. It just goes immediately into Alabaster Boxcar Tales Part 6.
Yeah, the next page, like the next page over, you don't even have to turn the page. The next page on the other side of the book, there is next comic with different art style and all that shit. Yeah, this Alabaster comic, it almost looks slightly more manga-y, except it's like indie manga, so it's probably not at all close to
It's some
manga.
kind of, it's like basically like spaceship. I'm on a spaceship adventures
Yeah,
on
someone's
a
on a
cargo
spaceship
hauler spaceship.
and they're like, "Oh no, there's problems in the spaceship," and it's like, "Oh, there's problems detected here," and it's like, "What?" And they go in, and it's a big forest, and it's like, "How did this forest get here?" And was it that it's terraforming the inside of the ship or something?
It's like, oh no, holographic wolf that the fucking AI, the ship's AI, is trying to fucking do some shit. It's like, oh, what is it doing? And then here you just circle right into the soundtrack to Sunshine, John Murphy and Underworld, drawn by Blake Mills Break
Oh, yeah, wait, that's
Mirrors.
at the end of fucking. Wait, hold on. That's the end of the story. What happens in the
Yeah,
story is it's this lady fucking on the
it's a little
spaceship,
alien Z. She's on the alien. She's on a dark, cramped ship, and she's got an Evo suit.
but then it's a jungle inside, and then the wolf is not a hologram. It's supposed to be an actual thing. It's supposed to be sentient. It's like, oh, it's not a hologram, but then what is it? It's like, that's part of the mystery. And then some naked lady shows up and is like, she says, "I'll race you," and you don't know what that's supposed to be in reference to. And then the comic just ends, and then at the bottom, sort of like the Squirrel Girl alt text effect, is it says, "This comic was made to the soundtrack to Sunshine." And just, ugh.
And then you made sure to appropriately circle that with the comment underneath saying "gay."
Because yeah, that was one of the only things I really disliked about the Scott Pilgrim comics is that it's like, oh, this comics was made to this soundtrack. And it's like, ugh. But I mean,
It's
if
like
you're drawing it,
hipster.
that's
It's like
fine.
that hipster fucking shit where it's like, yeah, that's fine, but I don't want to know. And at the same time, also, it's just like fucking the hipster. I believe in music the way some people believe in fairy tales shit.
Yeah, which is to say, not at all.
But that's it's so douchey.
Yeah, I understand why people do it. I understand like people want to say this is the sort of spirit, the mood, the tone of the
Yeah,
comic this is going
this
under.
was this was so inspiring to me
A
that it
lot
made
of
me make
comics
this.
fans and a lot of comics readers strongly believe in reading comics to music, and I do not at all. But I
No, that would
understand
be
why people
distracting.
do it.
If you're reading the fucking comic while listening to music, you're probably not paying much attention to the fucking comic.
Or you're not paying attention to the music. Or
Yeah,
you want to
exactly.
try to fucking have the music as a background thing, and it's like, yeah, fine, but personally, I don't believe in it. If people do that, that's fine, but I do not believe in it. I certainly don't, but most of all, I don't believe in writing a comic to music. You have to have everything shut out. That's how I feel to do it, though. I mean, some writers say that they actually feel they do their best writing when they're doing it in public, like they go to the mall to start writing, just like sitting on a bench or something. And
As long as they're not
and I
being
think some people do it while
distracted.
listening to music.
I think that would be okay as long as it's not distracting. Kind of like how I'm playing.
I think the point
I
of
might be
it
playing an
is to
old SNES
phase
game.
out everything, is to be able to phase out such a giant amount of the surrounding world that you then are able to focus more, or maybe to sort of be in touch with a public tone of how people interact with each other. It's
Well,
just
let's say
something
that I'm on the
psychological.
I'm on the Z SNES, I got like I used to do years and years ago, just playing Final Fantasy 3 or like fucking I'm trying to
while
think,
listening
was it
to
like
AC/DC or Rush.
yeah, well like listening to my Winamp playlist of just like a huge grab bag of assorted techno electronica songs from the 80s and shit,
Or new
and just
wave
weird
pop, synth pop shit.
random singles and hits
This
while I'm playing Yoshi's Island and stuff.
fucking lawn chairs are everywhere by Our Daughter's Wedding. That kind of goofy ass, just goofy fucking shit. I want to be a cowboy by, I don't even know who did that. I just know that that song is in The Last Boy Scout, and it's really
In the
retarded.
strip, it's in the strip club. It's a great song.
It's a great song, but it's also retarded.
It's better than anything that has come out in the last fucking 20 years.
Yes,
It's
easily and not even close.
easily better than any rap rock you've ever heard.
So what's the next story? I think the next one was really bland from what I remember, or something else.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking at just the first page and it looks extremely boring. It's was this Plain Sight Part Two, Bloodhound,
This one, no, was this the private investigators who were looking for
private
the
Inve-
sort of Invisible Man
the private
criminal?
the private investigator. When he hurts himself, women their clothing
But it's
just
not that. No,
immediately
this one was
vaporizes.
like slightly better writing as far as economic storytelling and things happening. But it was also, and one thing I wanted to say about the economy of storytelling in 8 pages is that Frank Miller completely nailed that when he did his Sin City issues for Dark Horse Presents in 8 fucking pages. But yeah,
Here's
this one, I remember this one being okay, but again, it just doesn't have anything to really grab me. And I understand maybe Dark Horse Presents is for a lot of people to either cut their teeth on writing or drawing comics so that they can sort of get a sense of how to do it on a more professional level without having the entire book to themselves. But I mean, $7.99 in 2013 for this. I wouldn't. I paid $1 for it, and I'm still throwing it in the garbage.
I really don't. I'm trying to read through it, and it just really doesn't catch my interest. And yeah, I think yeah, there's some Invisible Man, but there's like absolutely. It's almost like one of those extremely cheap movie tricks where it's just like we won't draw the
Yeah,
person. It's
which
like
is
okay,
weird
what
because
the
you don't
fuck's
need to
going
do
on?
that in fucking a comic book of all things. But aren't they also FBI agents? So it's almost like, oh darn, I wish the X-Files still exist. I'll make my own.
I'll make my own X Files, and then here's Scully, and she's just Scully. But then
Scally,
the other guy is like
just
fucking
guy.
Steven Seagal.
He's a
Steven
Steven Seagal
Seagal at the
Viking.
height of his career.
The fight of his career. He's fatter than ever. But yeah, so that one was. I didn't hate that one. I didn't fucking In fact, I almost liked it more than any of the others just because it sort of was just more solid and went somewhere. But again, it's sort of like if this were a manga, I could see like 5 naked women being decapitated by it. Like you watch the first episode or two
He he
of
turns invisible.
Devilman Crybaby, and naked women are just getting their heads ripped off and their bodies torn apart from the inside with giant spikes shooting out of their fucking throats, and they're screaming in horrific agony. It's so good.
It's wonderful. It that definitely would hold my interest if that was happening in this comic. If
But
this
yeah,
was a
American
manga,
comics are
you'd
just
be
too safe
seeing
to even think about. They'd be like, oh, that would be so misogynist and hateful against women. They're what faggots American comics creators are.
and the people making the comics would be on an apology tour. It would be the endless Obama apology tour of all time.
I have to admit, like we were talking about, I sent some comics to Dark Horse Presents. Well, Dark Horse opened submissions. I had no idea it was for Dark Horse Presents, so I sent them like full comics, like a chapter one, 25 pages script that I sent them, and I didn't know that they're not looking for a full comic. They're certainly not looking for a comic that's not drawn. They're looking for an 8 page comic that's pretty much already drawn because they would have to pay an artist if they really read a script that they loved that much, which I don't think my scripts were even close to. But I have to admit, The first one I sent them was about a was basically Falling Down 2, where it's two people on opposite sides of LA. They're flying towards the center. Buildings are blowing away. That was fucking an idea from Crate. Hey Crate, are you listening, Crate? But
Crate wanted us to do longer reviews.
yeah,
This is one of the best ways to do it.
yeah. He said
It's
he
an
wanted us to
indie
do
comic.
longer videos. He said that he's our favorite fix for centrist content. Radical, mild centrist content. That's we're
Evil
delivering.
centrists.
The
The evil
the
centrists who are
evil
ruining.
goddamn
They're ruining
centrists.
everything for the right wing.
Yes, the alt right is trying to save civilization, but the centrists won't let them. So the centrists will have to be rounded up into camps. I mean, hey, the fucking everyone's been saying tyranny is bad for 1,000 years now, but now the right wing, the alt right, has actually discovered that tyranny's pretty good. Time for the helicopter ride, centrists and leftists. And
They're
meanwhile,
also going
Antifa
to
is
give
saying
us
liberals get the
incentives.
bullet too, so they're doing the exact same thing. The purity spiral is already circling the drain.
It's the purity spiral, which, again, keep in mind, this has been invented by the left.
I would say it's more of a
Liberals.
purity circle. It's because it's very circular. It's the behavior of a total circle. But
Circle, or as they say, or as a certain ethnicity or religion might call it,
or both.
uh, a keikel.
But the comics I sent to Dark Horse, yeah, the first one, the Falling Down 2, I basically turned that goofy ass idea of Falling Down 2 into it's like a paladin girl and witch girl on the opposite sides of Demon City. The demons all want to fuck and suck every girl, which isn't that's not shown, but
They're
ultimately,
the evil sex demons. It's basically like power play.
yeah, that kind of stuff. But it's
Wonderful fucking Menger
yeah,
power
that one.
play
Now that's a
about
comic
to.
I would definitely pay. I would pay $8 for that comic. That's for sure. Not fucking Dark Horse Presents. But the thing is, at the end of this comic, they meet in the middle, and after defeating the ultimate evil, they beat the shit out of each other like the fight in They Live, except even more bloody and brutal, with like teeth flying out and just huge sprays of blood flying out of the hottest girls' mouths. It's completely misogynistic and hateful
But
and
what about their
disgusting.
clothing? What happens to their clothing?
Well, the witch girl doesn't really have any. She's really not wearing any at all. The
Oh
paladin
shit!
girl is dressed in just giant plate though. That pretty much stays the same, but still,
She does she have boop armor?
she no actually, but she does have fucking. There's sort of like a well, it's hard to describe. It's a different thing. It's a new paradigm, something no one's ever thought of before. Well, maybe they did. I don't know. Who gives a shit? But it's
Well,
not.
they haven't thought about it enough.
It's
That's
like
for sure.
ornamental sculpting, but they're not tit shaped exactly. It's more like an outcropping kind of fucking. I don't know. Who gives a fuck? But the thing is, the point is, the other girl doesn't even have armor at all. She just giant fat tits and ass fully on display for all the demons and for all the impoverished, starving slaves, the human slaves who are not yet demons or killed or they're being eaten or food or whatever the fuck. But the point of it is that it's girls actually the cutest girls ever having a hard time in life, and lots of violence being visited on these girls because they have to be held accountable for their actions, unlike every American comic, and that alone puts that just this idea that I sent to them head and shoulders above anything in Dark Horse Presents over the past 20 years. And I can say that with full confidence, having never read a single issue aside from this one for the past
They're
20
too.
years.
They're just way too afraid.
Yeah, because
They're
because
just too
American
afraid.
comics creators are afraid. They're afraid, and even the ones who say they aren't afraid, they don't really have the fucking ideas for this kind of shit
I
either.
rewatched that fucking video of DNC where he's talking about the fucking whatever it is the unbelievable wasp or whatever. These titles that they come up with for their characters are fucking atrocious. But it was like
It's
Oh,
an attempt at
fucking.
throwbacks to like the 1960s Marvel comics, the Crazy Hulk, and that kind of shit.
And he's talking about how basically Hank Pym, aka the Ant Man, has to pay for the one single issue one time where he hit his wife, and
Because he was
it's
taken
like
over by an intergalactic demon or something.
something like that. It was fucking yeah. But it's also his wife is also a superhero, so it's like she should be getting hit all the time. So
Yeah, by villains, but you
this
can't have
apparently,
that.
but that time, that one time, he will never be able to fucking get over it. He will be on the eternal apology tour for the rest of his entire existence because of
Yeah, as
this.
a character for something that happened in one issue in like 1970.
And then in the meantime, fucking Wonder Woman punch. She has the ability to lift a tank. She punches fucking Oliver Queen in the face because he is attracted to her, and he made it clear that he is attracted to her.
She also
Therefore,
punched a
which is
man.
of course rape.
She had a man restrained with the lasso, and then she punched him because he mansplained, which means he told the truth. I mean, hey, if the lasso's around you, you can only tell the truth. So he said something, so she punched him for telling the truth about something, which was mansplaining. I mean, that's
He
by
won an
feminists' own
argument,
definition. Mansplaining is objective fact, which means that a woman who is terrified of objective fact deserves rape.
but he won an argument and bad, and that is the same as rape.
Yes, it's the exact same as rape. That's how weak women are today. They're embarrassing. I would be embarrassed to be a woman, and
They're
every
weaker than
woman
ever.
should rightfully be embarrassed to be a woman these
They
days.
should be ashamed of wearing skirts on their exterior. They know the truth hurts. Women
Women
are
are
inferior.
inferior.
But yeah, I'm holding open this fucking the next comic, which is was this Brain Boy,
Oh yeah, that's
which
the one where
is
they're very easily summed up. A guy gets superpowers from drugs.
and the drugs are Lucky Charms.
Yeah, they're literally Lucky Charms, like in the Lucky Charms cereal. They're named after the exact marshmallows from Lucky Charms cereal, except they're also just drugs.
And he even says they've been feeding me the same breakfast cereal since I was 3 years old, but I know they're really drugs. I'm not an idiot. And he's got super tumbler nose. It's like ultra tumbler. His superpower is tumbler nose
I would
because
say
it's red.
2013, that's pretty early, but then it's like, oh no, it actually isn't. We were
No,
making our
no.
blog ripping fucking webcomics apart by 2013 already,
We were
so
making fun of Tumbler Nose in 2011, as far as I
yes.
remember.
Yes, we were.
But he's got like lines
We invented
across
the
his
term.
nose.
We're actually the
It's
first people to point it out
yes,
on the
yes.
entire internet in the history of the planet.
So if you're using the word tumbler nose to describe somebody with an abnormally red nose, that's you're stealing from us.
Yes, you owe us money for trademark term.
But we will allow you to have it because we are good people. We're so much
We're
better.
so nice. We will pardon you. So yeah, that pretty much sums up, and that's 8 comics. It's very dense, actually. There's a lot of dialogue throughout the pages. The
So
art's
that's
fine,
so much going on.
the art's fine, but to be
The
honest,
thing is also he eats the pill or he eats the drug. He gets the powers within like 1 second, almost
yeah,
like an injection.
I don't know why people think pills work that way anywhere. Pills never work that way. Not unless you
At
put
least
it
in
under your
a
tongue and it dissolves.
at least in a fucking video game, it's like whatever, fuck it, just condense down the thing.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to tell a story like this.
Well, in
You
Far
don't
Cry
have
3, it's that you'd literally turn it into a shot and inject it directly into your bloodstream, so that makes a lot of sense that it would work instantly.
yeah, they're like hypo sprays in Far Cry 3, but with
Well, I think they're
syringes,
directly shot. They're like epi shots. They're EpiPens, basically.
and it's great.
Yeah, it works, and so that makes sense. But if it's a pill, no, that doesn't really make sense. But still, usually, yeah, if it's in a video game, it's whatever. I just give me the effect. I don't care. But in a comic, no, that doesn't make sense. Not unless you're specifically dissolving it in your tongue, which they never point out and they don't show.
Is it dissolving into his tongue?
No,
Then he has the power of levitation. By the way,
yeah, which is like
so I guess
I think there's been other
the
comics.
levitation, the levitation I find more believable than him digesting a pill in 5 seconds.
Yes. In comics, I think drugs that give you superpowers has already been done since probably the 80s and certainly the 90s, so I think by
Well,
now it's
the
old
most
hat.
memorable one that I can even remember would be the No Hero, which is the fucking it's like a drug that gives you superpowers, but it might also kill you. And the guy has all his skin melt off and shit, and then he turns out to be a supervillain, and that's the end of the comic. And it is very, I think it was Mark Millar.
Well, he
Millar
also did MPH, which was a drug that makes you be able to like have, I think, flash speed or something, probably.
turn you into the Flash. Well, in
Which,
No Hero is like a random superpower.
yeah, but yeah. So that one is, as far as that goes, it's like, whatever. That one's slightly more interesting, at least I remember, but not to the point where, not to like you say, like Berserk or even like it's easy to compare. If you compared every single one of these to Delicious in Dungeon, like a comic about cooking, they're not even nearly as exciting or action packed. Not a single one of them has the action, like the fucking jumping away from explosions, holy shit, fucking crazy ass shit action, or the endearing, funny characters from like issue 1. That's the thing about manga is that they sort of know how to condense character traits into like almost one sentence or like just a one page of behavior. You kind of get to know what they're like, but they can also still build from there. In American comics, it's everyone has that sort of same bland generic personality almost.
And they're trying to make superhero comics.
Yeah, they don't really stand out as people, so they're like, oh, but they can fly or something. It's like I don't give a shit that they can fly anymore. I don't care about what their powers are anymore. I'm not impressed. You want to impress me? Take the wheel for a little while, motherfucker.
Wow, there's a superhero in a superhero comic, and their power is flight. Wow,
Whoa, I'm blown away
that's the
now.
thing is there's one of the X-Men characters is was it Angel, and he just has bird wings.
If
It's
his
like who
power
cares?
is wings.
His power is that he has bird wings, and also he's so hot. He's such a hot
The
dude,
guy's so hot.
even
I
even
mean,
though
back in
he's
the fucking
16.
in the
Even though he's 16, and it's not gay.
was it the 60s or the 70s when X-Men when did X-Men was actually invented? To be honest, I don't know. Was it the
I'm
early
pretty sure.
70s?
I'm pretty sure it was the 60s, like the late 60s. The X
Very
Men
late
came
60s
around,
maybe.
but it was really stupid back then. That was back when fucking Magneto's army was called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yeah, I think they wanted to basically make like the next level of fucking the Fantastic Four. They wanted to just kind of make their own knockoff of Fantastic Four. So like, okay, we'll make Fantastic Four. I think it was literally 4 people. They just had 4 mutants. And one
There are
was
four
Angel, and
people,
his power was had to have bird wings, and that was supposed to be really amazing.
but then there's also the other fucking the girl who has bug wings, and her name is Angel, and she can also spit acid.
Yes. Oh, that's pretty good too, I guess. But they show up as tattoos. I don't fucking even know. But
I don't know.
so what's the next comic? There was one in there that was really boring because it was like all of a sudden it flashes back to medieval times. It's like there's nothing more boring to me in comics than medieval times, unless it's going to be like that. Was it Garth Ennis or Warren Ellis that did the comic about archers during the 100 Years' War? It was like a
Oh yeah,
historical war comic.
fucking Creasy or whatever.
Yeah, Creasy. The one where he's like, I can kill you at 100 yards with these 2 fingers, and it just fucking holds up the V and then just cut to fucking
It's honestly,
Winston Churchill.
It's a comic trying to make a point, but it doesn't really have a point. It's like, yeah, you may have super technology, but we have like better thing, and it's just like, no, it rained, so your crossbows didn't work so well,
Yeah,
and
you know
it's
what
like you
though?
got
That
lucky.
comic was at least still more entertaining than a lot
Yeah,
of comics that are like, oh, go back into medieval times.
like Time Ruiners. That was the thing is about
Oh yeah, Time Ruiners,
Time Ruiners, aka Chrononauts.
Chrononauts. Yeah, that one
It's like we
I
can go back
liked
in
that
time where
one.
we're fucking with a time stream and manipulating
They're just
history.
destroying the concept of history. They're just stomping a foot right through it.
Like it was
And
a
then they high
desiccated
five. That's
pumpkin.
the whole point of the comic is afterwards they high five. Bro,
There's
bro,
still guys. There's still guys who high five.
yes. There's
And yeah,
still
and
guys
that's
who
the
high
thing
five.
is, it's you can do literally anything, but it's almost like baby's first time travel story. It's actually really dull.
Yeah, it's kind of I thought I kind of felt the point of it was almost to be pointless. We're like, let's go through history and just do completely retarded shit.
And
We'll
you
bring a
know it's
tank
really
to fucking
sad
Charlemagne.
when I'm calling something like this dull, which has like T-Rex cavalry fighting fucking jet fighters
Yeah, it's
and
like Calvin and
fucking
Hobbes become
yeah,
human
it's
beings and ruin time.
literally Calvin and Hobbes if somebody was trying to turn that into a real idea.
That's and
It sounds
I
like
think
the
that's
best
kind
thing
of what
ever,
sort of the point of the comic was too.
but it just it wasn't that interesting. I mean, it's not horrific, but
Yeah,
it's not something I'd pay money for.
it's not the kind of comic that is like so thrilling that it's like you got to have it. It's I just thought it was kind of an interesting like interesting idiocy, which is still a step up from the average of comics, but
It wasn't as
it's
interesting
not
as
good
fucking
enough.
what was it, Kick-Ass.
Yeah, Kick-Ass I liked a lot actually. The
That
comic.
that the point is that was actually at least interesting because taking the idea of no one actually having superpowers, the very first thing that happens in both the comic and the movie, which I keep forgetting happens most of the time, is
Yes.
a guy with a bird suit. It's like I'm gonna fly, and then he just crashes into a car. It's like,
Dies.
oh, he this guy liked comic books too, but he has mental problems.
Yeah, so he died. That's kind of what the point of Kick-Ass was. Kick-Ass, I would say, had a much more interesting concept and delivery. That's kind of more what comics I wish comics would go for is something more subversive. It doesn't have to all be subversive. It doesn't have to be like wall-to-wall rape. But I have a feeling that even comics creators are getting bored of just superheroes and have been for decades. That's why they start putting in that really retarded, edgy shit because they're getting bored of it, but they're shitty creators themselves. So they make this really retarded shit where a guy with spike suits that fucking jabs him all the time, so he feels pain all the time, man. And just retarded shit.
And
And
but that
women,
shit sells. That shit
women in
sells, though. That's the
fridges.
problem.
Yeah, it
Women being
sells to
fridge.
people with no taste though. That's kind of the problem with superhero comics is that it's not really appealing to people with good taste.
The real problem is it keeps getting made, and then it's just like kids are like, "Oh, this is great," and then the kids grow up, and it's like, oh, "I grew up with these superhero comics. They should just keep making them." And
Yeah,
it's
and
just like
they
they're
look back on
boring.
the comics they read as a kid and they're like, "These comics were great." And it's like, "No, you're just nostalgic. There's a huge difference and nobody but us has the fucking balls to even question their own nostalgia. They just say in fact, I've seen people completely blinded by their own nostalgia say about other people like, "Oh, you shouldn't be fucking judging things on nostalgia too much." Now let me tell you why the comics that I used to read when I was younger are better than comics now, which means almost nothing. I mean, comics now certainly are worse, but only for one reason. And if you went back to the era where comics were supposedly good, they wouldn't really be any good. They certainly couldn't compete with manga, whose fucking comics are still pretty much locked down to formula. Very strict formulas, I would say, most of the time.
And that's the thing is really fucking even back in like the 1990s, comics were becoming fucking gigantic. The business was in the just perfect swing. It was taking off.
To really
You
evolve, it
know,
was in the perfect position to evolve to something completely beyond like superheroes, and then it just
and
didn't.
the X-Men cartoon and the Batman cartoon. It was the ultimate time of comics, and they were making more money than ever.
And superhero
But
comics.
we didn't fucking have access to comics because the nearest comic shop was like 15, 20 miles away on a bicycle. We're not doing that for money with money we don't have when I could take the exact same amount of money and rent a game for 3 days, which will last far longer than the entertainment I would ever get from a single comic book.
Yeah, you're talking
So
about like 15 minutes of entertainment. Or you could just turn on the TV and watch the X-Men cartoon.
yeah, or watch Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, Rescue Rangers, which is at least on par, if not better, than pretty much every superhero comic coming out at the time.
Rescue Rangers, fairly patrician. But yeah, and then we finally go to somebody's house, a cousin's house. He's got a big, huge, giant fucking stack up to the fucking ceiling of X-Men comics, old X-Men comics, just from the 80s. Just a stack fucking above your head from X-Men comics
Yeah, those were like
that
the
are
first
3 years
comic books
old.
you read, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, Wolverine, he fights a guy with knife hands, and it's just like, and they stab each other, and Wolverine finally cuts his head off at the end. They stab each other for fucking 15 pages, and then it's just like, wasn't that interesting? Now go read fucking more Wolverine comics.
Or not really,
It's like,
not very
no, not
violently
really.
stabbing each other sometimes.
Yeah, but it's, of course, they can't actually show it, blood or anything.
Yeah, or if they do show blood, it's like in such a weird streaked way that it seems to actually cover up the violence. So the blood actually makes things less
But
violent.
I, in particular, remember trying to actually read the dialogue, and it's like, this is shit for kindergartners, and people will apologize for that. It's like, yes, the original comic books were written for people with a kindergarten reading level, so that you
And
could
we were
get as
like
many people
11.
into comics. Yeah, we're not that old, but I was insulted. It was so bad.
Yeah,
It was so
yeah,
stupid.
and that's supposed to be the glory days of superhero comics? No, I don't think
Yes.
so.
That was the glory days, and they just got more and more popular. And meanwhile,
But they didn't get
we're
better.
we're we're fucking playing like Chrysalis and Final Fantasy
Yeah,
Two,
Chrysalis had better
and
writing
fucking,
than superhero
yes,
comics.
way better writing than superhero comics. Holy shit! And Chrono Trigger,
Yeah, and the
just
writing isn't
vastly superior.
the characters are really strong in those. The writing is pretty like the stories are kind of generic. Like, oh, the bad guy has the crystals, but it's like he took over the whole kingdom. It's a really almost a long sell, or not long sell, but the long game of storytelling. Except it's in a single game, as far as Final Fantasy 2 or 4, as some people call it. But it's like, oh, the entire kingdom you've been working for the entire time is actually taken over by the four fiends. And it's like,
Final
oh
Fantasy Two
shit.
US.
And it's kind of a dumb, cheap plot twist, but it's also a plot twist that is like presented instead of just in like
It's
a comic
more.
book. It's kind of like a who gives a shit.
First off, it's something you get invested in more because you're the one taking control of the character,
Yeah,
which you cannot do in a fucking comic book.
yeah. You can't take
Secondly,
control of
is
any
that
character in a comic book.
it's like 80 hours of content.
But also, American comics tend to avoid that concept of telling the story from like the protagonist, a villain protagonist's point of view. They still don't really do that. And when they do, they make it way too obvious and childish and like kindergarten level writing and just really
That's the
stupid
problem
and
with
blatant.
foreshadowing is you have
They
to be pretty
foreshadow for
careful if
one
you're gonna.
issue and reveal it in the next issue or something. It's just
Well,
dumb.
that or they foreshadow it continuously until it's beaten through your head and you're tired of it by the time it's finally revealed. It's like, okay, I get it. Enough. Like they just drag it out. That shit was fucking annoying. That shit's more annoying.
Than anything. Ever.
You
But
foreshadow something for one issue, at least it's like, okay, there's a plot twist. But if you foreshadow it for 100 issues, it's like, I am tired of this. And they don't understand that.
the uh there's some exceptions to superheroes. We have to point that out every time because usually some fucking cake
Superheroes
fan fag.
dominate the entire fucking industry, though.
Yeah.
They keep making more and more of them, and they're even now making superhero again with fucking the Incredible Wasp. These people don't even want to make a superhero comic. They want to pat themselves on the back for being girls and playing with laser pointers and being like, "I'm a scientist. Look at this laser pointer I have." And it's like,
Oh, they're so dumb.
You're an idiot.
You're a dumb fucking broad. What do women want? Who cares?
And it's what do women want? Who cares? Drink.
Drink. But the thing is
But they
also
they
the
fucking
people
don't
who
even.
say
They're not even making a superhero comic at that point anyway.
the
But it's like a bait and switch.
the people who say, "Oh, I'll fix it. I'll make it my own superhero comic that's even better." You're making your own superhero comic, and then it's not better. Like fucking,
It's like,
you
oh,
want to look
she's a
for an
red.
example of that? Just look at fucking
I'm gonna say,
Jawbreakers.
yeah. Well, Jawbreakers or fucking Alt Hero.
Yeah, Jawbreakers, Alt Hero, and a lot of indie comics being put out there on like Comixology Submit. You can see a lot of them are superhero comics that are trying to do the exact same thing. They just want to make their own version of Superman, Spider-Man, Captain America. They're not really looking to do something unique with the genre. They're just looking to do their own treading water retreading.
If they could, if Marvel just straight up hired them and said, "You're on Spider here, you can do whatever comic you want of any of the characters, or do your own original thing," they'd be like, "Okay, I'm taking Spider-Man. Then, oh, somebody's there's already three concurrent Spider-Man stories. It's just another one, but it's a different time frame. But it's still Spider-Man. They
And
don't care.
and then he would do mostly the same shit that there's like, oh, this is when my favorite Spider-Man comic is the one where he lifted up all the heavy stuff. So in this comic, he lifts up heavy stuff.
In this issue, guess what? This is my own personal special Spider-Man story. In this issue, he has to decide if he's going to save the bus full of kids or Gwen Stacy. And it's like, gee, we never heard of that.
You're blowing me away with your fucking your return to normalcy, your return to the glory days of superheroes. That's real interesting. That's very legendary of you.
That's what Vox Day wants to do, though. Is he's like,
Except dumber. Except
her
even
outfit
dumber.
is the American flag, and she's actually looks female, but it's not. It's not too tasteless. It's kind of classy. It's not too
still
tasteless. She's
respecting
not
women.
naked or anything.
Respecting the Wombian.
We're still respecting women with this comic. And it's like, okay, I will never even touch. I would not read this for free. You couldn't pay me.
Yeah, you gotta pay me to read this shit.
Maybe you could pay me to read this.
We've been paid to read superhero comics before, and to be honest, I don't think it was worth it.
Especially since one of them was Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, but fucking Squirrel Girl is like, it's like a black hole. We're pretty much the first people on the entire internet to give a negative review of Squirrel Girl. We're the first people on the entire
That's
internet
true,
to do a
that's
negative
right.
review of Miss Marvel.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
We were the first people on the internet to give a negative review of Squirrel Girl because DNC Shill wasn't doing reviews back then.
And neither was any of the other people, like the fucking Mim Headrooms or Captain Cummings or anyone else. They weren't doing reviews of comics back then.
And
we were.
CO wouldn't touch it with they wouldn't dare insult it.
Well,
because they didn't want to
if
drive
they
away
posted
girls.
about how they didn't like it, they weren't doing reviews of it. They were just like, "Oh, this sucks," and that's it.
They were afraid to touch it, though.
Yeah, they're afraid to really dig deep.
They're cowards. They're cowards, moral cowards. They're essential moral cowardice.
And they're afraid to dig deep, and we aren't. We have a giant.
So
axe
we're at
covered
page
with blood.
33. We're at page 33.
Boy, 33. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what the next comic is. From what I remember, it was really boring. I don't know. Was that the archery girl? Just some archery girl is doing archery?
Fucking no. It's called Trucker, the Train to Avalon Bay, Part 1. And it's like, I think it says New Telgaff, or Galaf, New Galaf. ZZZB. And it's like, well, what is this? Oh, wait, is that 2226? I couldn't tell because of the font. It's fucking hard to tell. If it was 2222, I would have assumed it was snoring. Because I can't fucking tell with a typesetting. I couldn't tell that it was supposed to be a year in the future.
Yet again, a lot of people making comics today in America still don't really have it nailed down how to even do the lettering.
It's the Half-Life mod review. It's the Half-Life 2 mod preview article with the year is 2226 and go.
Ass
And
cancer, go.
there's dinosaurs, ass cancer, go. The water is horrifying people or whatever it was.
The water's
Go.
curing people of cancer, which burns them and gives them horrific permanent scars, so they have to become half robot. It's like what that's wait, this is your plot? This is your introduction to the plot? Why?
Therefore, there's going to be robots and dinosaurs in the game that you fight, and there's going to
How
how
many
many
dinosaurs?
dinosaurs? Probably something shitty like 11. Whoa, 13.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, but also the last page of the previous one, Drug Boy comic or whatever the fuck, I don't even remember the name of it. But it's like female Secret Service agent, blonde female Secret Service agent
Another
jumps
one,
out.
just like in the fucking Blackout, at the end of Blackout.
Yep, but it's like, oh, she's the cute agent who likes me. She knows my name, me likey. It's like, but then you look at her and it's like, damn, she even in this relatively smaller drawing, she's pretty fucking hot. She's
But
got
she's
some
not. She
banging
doesn't have
cute
the male
titties.
gaze. She's not hit with the male gaze like she would be in manga. I mean, I
The,
hate to keep giving credit to manga, but in manga she would be so sexualized. I guess she would be
objectificating,
hypersexualized.
objectificating out the ass.
Not
Stare
not
rape laser beam.
not that hypersexualized even means anything. It certainly doesn't. But speaking of not meaning anything, hold on a second. You keep going, reading stuff. I gotta fucking.
Well, you go ahead and you do that. But I was going to say also, it kind of reminds me of fucking whoever, Helena Bonham Carter from Resident Evil 6, the wonderful classic, best Resident Evil game ever, Resident Evil 6. But in that, yeah, I think she's a Secret Service agent along with fucking Leon Kennedy. And she's just got like the tightest fucking pants. It's super tight pants. It's like, what else is she wearing? She's hooer. It's literally like librarian fantasy. That's one of the things that I think the Japanese are starting to pick up on, because it used to be, if you especially look in like 80s, 90s anime, the fucking bug eyes were fucking through the roof. They were actually kind of ugly, and they all had like stick figure, not even stick figure arms and legs, but like stick insect physiques where they had no tits, no ass, and again, that's kind of ugly. Now they've got bigger fun bags. Now they've seen some more American Western pornography, and they're getting plenty of enjoyment out of some of those body shapes and types. It's quite delightful. And in particular now, I think they've all discovered uh, just the wonders of the librarian look, where she's got glasses. Once you put glasses on a girl, it just like increases her sexual fucking attractiveness by 800%. And then maybe give her a bun, give her a hair bun or ponytail, even though that's technically supposed to be less feminine. It actually makes her even hotter because everyone loves tomboys, especially tomboys that don't exist in the 3D realm. Because everyone knows earl tomboys, 3D pig tomboys, are so fucking repulsive. They're not real tomboys. They're fakes. They're kind of like fake geek girls, except that fake geek girls are actually more repulsive because they're so fake. I especially like how DNC just straight up started calling female cosplayers whores. Like it's like I went to the comic convention, and you don't see very many whores around, but I did see some whores, and he's of course talking about female cosplayers because there's only one reason you be female and cosplaying as a female comic book character, and that is because you're a whore who doesn't read the comics. DNC Shill, aka Diversity in Comics, just so you know, not to confuse him with anyone else. Diversity and Comics. But anyway, that's like the last page of the fucking drug boy, drug guy with Tumblr nose. He's got super spirally, tumbly tumbler nose. It's like his nose is vibrating. It's got a bunch of lines all over it. It's fucking weird. But they're both white guys, a white couple with both with blonde hair. They're very Aryan, superior Aryan skull shape. But that's it. It's fairly decent, but yeah, it's just it's she just shows up at the end of the final page. That's it. But then it leads into
Were you,
Trucker.
were you talking about Shitty Webcomics 4?
No, shitty webcomics 4.
Also known as Diversity in Comics?
You mean shitty webcomics 4.2?
Shitty Webcomics 2.2, really.
Yeah, he's very derivative of us back
Yeah,
like
actually,
3 years ago, backdated 3 years. That's him.
actually, he's Shitty Webcomics 0.8. He's not even Shitty Webcomics version 1.
He's very nearly us. He's
a
nearly at our
pre-release.
level.
Yes, he's
A
pre-release
pre-release.
beta.
He's nearly at the level we were at 4 years ago.
He's a pre-release beta cuck. He's not a beta cuck, actually. He's
not a
cool
cuck.
and all, but as
Probably not low T.
he has a pretty, like, I would say, a childish view of comics, but I think it serves just as well to call it a superhero fan's view of comics, which is about the same thing. He liked the Star Wars prequels, which, if you wanted to ever discredit people who like superhero comics, just point that out. Some of the biggest proponents of superhero comics like awful gay shit like that.
The Star Wars prequels. You know what's even worse than that? The original Star Wars movies. Oh shit!
People are really turning on The Last Jedi, by the way, and we still haven't seen it.
That's the thing. As you know, it's funny. They used to fucking really pray on Red Letter Media during the Star Wars prequel reviews that they did. They would, really praise the original trilogy, being like, "Here's all the things they got right." And now with their latest reviews, they're like, there really isn't a whole lot to the Star Wars movies to begin with.
Yeah, there really shouldn't have been any more trilogies. Just the first fucking 3 Star Wars are kind of all you need.
Well, you can make more trilogies, but how about actually get people who have ideas for what to make instead of being like, "Oh, this guy's already famous and he's sucked enough
Well,
dicks in Hollywood."
I think they did though, and that's kind of the point of these new movies is that they're trying to subvert the whole legend of Star Wars too much. So I think a lot of Star Wars fans are starting to hate it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I have no idea because I haven't seen it, and I would not trust a Star Wars fan's opinion on anything.
No, definitely not. We can no longer trust Star Wars fans' opinions.
On
But
anything
also,
ever.
we'll wait for a rental. That's the other thing is people will probably be screaming, "You have to go see it in the theaters." No, not going to do that. I'll wait for a rental.
Dunkirk you should see in the theaters, but that's too late for that.
Bring earplugs and a sleeping mask.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of this superhero fans and that kind of shit, they're apologists for some of the shittiest fucking, like, empty, cynical, marketing cash grabs ever, like Man of Steel. They'll say, "No, Man of Steel's a great hero movie," but it's not. It's a fucking mess, and it's really, really stupid.
You know what? One thing that Man of Steel did that was definitely good is we got to accuse people of not wanting to join us in the sun.
Yes, that's the only good thing about Man of Steel.
That's basically all it's ever done
They're
right.
not joining us in the sun for the rest of their life because they're so into darkness.
Because
we're so beyond.
Because we'll snap their necks.
Yes,
We'll snap their necks
like Superman. That's actually my favorite thing of the entire fucking new. And we haven't seen Justice League either. Don't really give a shit. I'll rent it, I guess. But as far as my favorite thing for the new, the Hack Snyder, visionary director Hack Snyder, fucking superhero movies, my favorite thing is Superman snapping someone's neck so hard that a totally badass sonic boom comes out, bro.
It's like that fucking Lord GT where they punch each other's fists and a little mini shockwave comes out and like, whoa,
It's
badass.
so bad, it's so dumb and retarded, it's probably actually influenced by anime.
I also wanted to point out this is something that's important to point out, even though this is not on topic for the comic book review we're doing. But the trailer for Man of Steel better than the whole movie.
Yeah, well,
The
not even
trailer,
close.
the trailer is a better movie than the actual movie.
What is the next comic, by the way, in this?
The next comic, Trekker the Train to Avalon Bay, and it's a girl in like skin tight, semi, not exactly skin tight, relatively skin
Not
tight
enough.
outfit, and she's about to go jump on this guy, and then she's probably gonna mash her tits into his face. As soon as I turn the page, the next thing she's gonna do is she'll drop her weapons and just mash her entire body against him and just rub her chest right across the bridge of his nose and just hold it there and be like, now just stay here until you are knocked unconscious.
She'll subdue him
And,
by wrapping her tight, firm, thick thighs around his neck. Oh wait, that doesn't happen, does it?
and then that'll just go on for like 20 pages as they fucking are wrapped up. They're wrapped up in a hot vine.
In a hot,
Can't
sweaty
can't
vine. Can't see the
can't
TV,
see.
can't hear it.
Ain't that better?
Ain't that
But
better?
but yeah, I'm sure when I turn the page, that's the next thing I'm gonna see.
It
Or
certainly
well, it'll
better
go on
be.
for 8 pages, not 20, because this is fucking Dark Horse
Dark
presents.
Horse.
They're short anthologies. Oh no, that doesn't happen. She ends up just she's really fucking. She is so fast, and she's got a gun. She's just not doing. They both have
Why
guns.
not just shoot him then?
Neither one of them is shooting. They're just kind of running. She is chasing this guy.
See,
It looks
that's
like a
another thing
homeless guy.
that most fucking creators, not just in comics, but all American creators, are kind of too faggoty to accept is that if you want to have a woman best a man in any fight, she has to have a gun. That will be the best realistic way, the most logical way, the most equal way, and also the most freedom loving way. If you don't have that, you don't really love freedom. Not like we do, which is another reason why we're better than all of you. And you know what though? The Japanese don't do it either because they're pretty cucked. They're too cucked into their dumb gay fucking folded a million times perfect steel, which just bends as soon as an American sword touches it.
A proper American English longsword.
Yes.
Smack it, smack a katana with it. You immediately destroy the fucking thing.
Yes, permanently destroy. You can't even use the steel for anything after that. It just has to be thrown into the fucking sea.
It'll be turned back into a hubcap.
Where it belongs. That's all Japanese swords are actually good for, is to recycle them back into hubcaps where they belong.
But then you also, on this third page of this comic, page 35, we're only 35 pages into our review ever,
Ugh.
but pants not tight enough, and then circled her ass.
Yeah, it's like they're almost trying to look like ass gripping it's an ass shot. It's a full on ass shot, but it's the fucking pants aren't really that tight, so it just looks bland.
Yeah, her clothing is not it's not skin tight, and it looks like it's not meant to be, but at the same time, it
Unlike
is.
Mass Effect 2, where fucking Miranda Lawson's ass, her pants were so ass gripping, they were like being sucked into her ass hole. Her
Her
colon was just
perfect, her
sucking
perfect
pants.
genetically engineered ass, and then
Genetically engineered ass.
and tits. And does she really? Is she really? Cerberus lets her really go whoring around in that outfit, or we're just gonna wait for her to finish getting dressed?
No, we're not gonna wait.
But then also, people, was that somebody knocking on the wall,
No. That
or
sounded
was
like
that
an explosion.
sounded like an explosion? I guess somebody's blowing up the neighborhood.
Someone's blowing up the
But
city. I'm
anyway,
gonna blow
we're
up the
busy.
city.
They don't understand. We're gonna
Rubber
blow up
band. A rubber band
the
based explosive.
rubber band based energy source.
That's right. Ugh.
But anyway, fucking what the say?
I have no
Oh,
fucking
it was
clue.
about no, it was about Tracer's
Oh, that's right.
aspect is
Trice's
apparently
ass.
unrealistically deep, and apparently nobody really understands this except for the fucking sex negative feminist seju bag.
Apparently, jealous feminist women and in mentally unbalanced trannies paid so much more attention to Tracer's ass crack than men who wanted to be sexually aroused by it.
You know what would be really triggering for them though
Shooting them.
is
Oh.
is if a man had sex with Tracer, even though she's now in canon. It's the most important thing ever.
If
She's a
Tracer in
lesbian.
canon suddenly wanted to have sex with a man and was like, oh no, I can't have pleasure without patriarchal cock.
That would be so oppressive.
Yeah,
It would be
heterosexuals. See, that's the thing. When diversity in comics started saying, like, making fun of Marvel by saying heterosexuality is never the answer, but that kind of reminds me of 4 years ago when we were pointing out how feminists are terrified of the concept of heterosexual sex. Remember
they're
that?
terrified
Corey?
it. They're terrified of it, but they desperately want it.
Yes. Well, that's something diversity in comics will probably start saying in a couple of years. Is that that
Another
the
4 years.
after heterosexuality is not the answer, he'll start saying that they secretly crave heterosexuality because that's something
And
that's
that
been pretty obvious for a long time now.
that is something myself that I actually read from the whatever the stupid ass dog comic, where the guy is a dog. He's talking, and he's on trial. He's on trial
Where you mean
because
where
he is a
everyone's
man.
dogs except for Muslims who are monkeys,
Yeah, or the
or
Muslims
Muslims
are
are camels,
camels,
literal camels.
and then the
Women are poodles.
black people are alligators.
I guess that's not too bad.
I forgot what the comic's called though. But then he's on trial because
What? What? He's on trial. He's on. What the
masculinity
Why is
is
he on
totally
trial?
evil.
He's on trial because of what?
He's on trial because he's the only masculine man left in the world, and he's fucking. I forgot exactly. He's just on trial for
For
being
being masculine.
masculine, and her lawyer, the woman's lawyer, is like, "Say he hit me." Just just basically what really happens in the family court system today. Just here, tell this lie. Just say he hit me,
Here, lie
and
under
then,
oath about this, and
and then
does she even bat an eye over lying under oath in a court of
no,
law?
no. And you know what? All the women there don't. But then there's like the female technician specialist who's there to say that fucking masculinity is totally
You mean like a female psychologist, gender studies degree?
hot. The fucking thing cut out again. It's like cutting
Yeah,
out every 15 seconds.
it's getting fucking long. Well,
This is the fault of people who don't donate to our Patreon.
yes, I blame the Patreon. I blame the donators. I blame the people who
Don't
upvote our
donate.
videos.
Become a patron on Patreon, and you can get the extra 15 seconds back.
Yes, but then we'll also blame you for it not being there.
We'll blame you for it still not being there. It's a technical issue on your end,
Where are we going with the fucking
listeners.
with the dumb comic?
Oh
By the
well,
way,
guess what? This dumb comic goes to. She catches the guy. She does actually body, which that almost was hot. There is some gunfire, but they're just shooting around.
she doesn't subdue him by sucking him so hard that his balls implode.
Sucking him so that he becomes almost a skeleton, like in the scary movie, whichever one of the scary movies
Scary
it was.
Movie 1, I remember it vividly. Great,
And then he
wonderful
blasts her into the ceiling.
movie. She almost dies. It's great.
Haha. Well, one of the things I most especially really loved and remember, I think it was Scary Movie 2, where she's like the female main character.
The cat punches her so hard in the face that blood and sweat is just spraying out in slow motion.
That is also great. You know
That
what?
was actually hotter than the super cum shot from the first movie.
Both of the first two movies,
It's so hot to see a
they're
woman
very
get punched in
silly.
the face.
They're very silly, and it makes me regret that it might have given birth to the whole fucking Meet the Spartans
Well, yeah, because
formula.
those writers were from. Scary Movie 2 is definitely the biggest dud of them all.
Well, we saw, I think, all four of them, and
Yeah.
I still,
Like 3 and 4, like I don't think had those guys. 3 and 4 had just a bunch of different writers, and then so it went sort of almost back to a sense of like Airplane, Naked Gun kind of
yeah,
satire, as
I think
opposed to
even
Date Mover, Meet the Spartans.
doesn't
Yeah,
Leslie Nielsen actually show up in the fourth one or some
I think he
shit?
was in one of them. Yeah, I think he was the
That's
president in
where
one of
he
them.
fucking the black guy who looks like Patrice O'Neill has a shovel, and
William
he just
Wallace. Oh wait, no,
he racks the slide of the fucking
he
shovel
chooks a
so
shovel and a shotgun
so
shell
that
flies out.
two shotgun shells. But it was Scary Movie 2 where she's like, I just want to be treated like one of the guys.
Oh yeah, and then he
And it's like,
punches her right in the tit. He's like, open chest, and then slams his fist into her tit. And he's like, oh, too slow, A cup.
that I fucking don't even remember that. That was a great one. The one I
Yes,
do
that
remember
was
is
really
he
good.
immediately and then fucking gives her a giant fucking wedgie with her fucking ass floss, and then runs off and says, "Smell you later."
Yes, that was pretty good because she friend zoned him, so he friend zoned her back in the way that women don't actually desire.
Women would be fucking terrible if men actually did that
They're
shit.
so weak.
Women would be
They'd be
terrified.
way too weak to be able to put up with, to be
they'd
able
be
to
crawling
handle.
over broken glass on their hands and knees to beg men to treat them like fucking like the patriarchal fucking
Jizz rags. They
the
would
patriarchal cum dumpster cum receptacles.
they're just the container you shoot it into. They would be, yes, if they really got treated the way men treat their friends, their male friends, if women were treated that way, they would be so desperate to go back to being disposable jizz rags. I mean, most of them already want to be. That's why they
So
dress up in the whore outfits when they're cosplaying.
so on that subject, she catches the guy and he's bounty, and she turns him in, and then she fires her grappling hook gun and
And
flies
this
off.
isn't after she gets cum gut from a werewolf and like the Left 4 Dead zombies beast fuck her.
She gets punched in the face so hard that a fucking just a stream of blood splatters
She
the
gets
entire
this is
wall.
after she gets punched in the face through her stomach from a tentacle slamming so hard into her cunt.
But
Oh wait,
otherwise,
wait, no, that doesn't happen in this comic, does it?
it doesn't really leave much of a mark. It leaves like a little crosshatch or
Oh,
scuff mark.
so that's the whole comic.
That doesn't even happen in the comic.
Oh,
No. But she fires her grappling hook after she's finished dropping him off at the fucking station. She fires her grappling hook, and the
she
grappling hook
jetpacks
pulls
away.
her up. She pulls her up into the air while her cape flaps. And it's like, gee, I wonder which fucking superhero comic this is supposed to be based on.
Darkwing
Then she's
Duck.
in a train station talking with some other doof.
Even Darkwing Duck had a more original take on superheroes than than most people making superhero comics today, whether they're indie superhero comics or superhero comics fans who are like, I really like superhero comics. I wish they would get rid of
Darkwing,
the social justice stuff
Darkwing,
or
fucking Duck.
actual social justice fucking shit.
That episode with Nega Duck or whatever it was. The
I
fucking
almost
it's like
hated
the
that fucking episode. It's like
I was not. I was kind of tired. You know, Disney cartoons in
Negaduck
general.
just pretty much won the whole time. It's just about how Darkwing Duck is just constantly getting fucking completely outskilled and bitched, getting memed on or whatever the fuck.
He's a pretty
Yeah, he's a shitty character. Launchpad McQuack was a better character.
Looney Tunes. Still
Yeah,
coming out.
Looney
What the
Tunes is
fuck?
better.
Okay, yeah, Looney Tunes and also Tiny Toons.
Tiny Toon Adventures, great show.
Great, great
Until they
fucking
gave
stuff.
strangely enough, until they gave Babs cleavage, then things got weird.
Once she got hot, then once she got really hot and fuckable, that's when things started to get strange.
Yeah, and confusing. I was like,
That's when the girl bunny from fucking Space Jam shows up all of a sudden. It's like what?
she's
It's
even
like
hotter. But like,
what?
holy shit.
I don't approve of your lifestyle, furries.
But yeah,
There's no business in a
Tiny
place
Toon
over there.
Adventures was almost experimental.
And then, of course, that led into Animaniacs, which was even more insane.
Yeah, Animaniacs was almost just going completely off the fucking rails, though. But you know what though? I didn't like it as much. I don't know why. I didn't like Animaniacs as much as Tiny Toon Adventures.
No, that's also true. It's just I don't know, maybe it's because we were like 16 years old when the show
Yeah,
came out. And it's like
there's
I'm a little
that.
tired of this. I'm a little tired of
Plus, I
this.
really resented cartoons that started at 3 when I only got off school at like 3:30 or
Hmm.
4.
Yeah, that
I had a
shit.
deep resentment for that, just the existence of the idea of that.
Most especially because it actually really fucking started to chafe my
Yeah,
walnuts
I
when I found out there were
personally,
cartoons running at 12 in the fucking afternoon.
yeah, I
And it's like
personally despised cartoons that did that.
any cartoon that was on before 3:30,
Yeah, I
and even
hated the
some of the
cartoon
ones,
itself on a personal level.
and
Like if
then
Animaniacs started at 3, but I didn't get home until 3:30 or 4, then I hated Animaniacs.
but guess what was even worse? Guess what aired at 5 p.m. Fucking Saved by the
Yeah,
Bell,
the
which
worst
is
fucking show.
I feel bad that I might have contributed to the ratings just because I refused to turn off the TV.
Yeah, just in a depression, it's like we're fucking 13, 14 years old and just suicidally depressed because of
It
life.
would actually, the show coming on the air frequently would take me by surprise. It's like, oh fuck no, why is this on? Is this too early? This is
And
it coming
now
on earlier? And
you just click something and your favorite show's on whenever the fuck you want it to be on.
no commercials, no
Yeah.
nothing.
No such thing as commercials anymore. You can download fucking entire decades of television shows to your fucking hard drive over your phone.
Oh, over the
Over your
phone.
phone.
I'm very compelled to go and download, or I'm going to record some footage of Watch Dogs 2 and
Oh,
make fun of. I'm
yeah,
going
yeah.
to
Even
retitle it so that it makes
video
fun of
games are
black
on a
people.
fucking whole other level than they were then. You don't need a cart. You don't even need a physical disc anymore. You just click the button to download it, and there you have it.
Click button to download, download complete, fucking play game.
Start enjoying life again.
Enjoy, yeah, no longer feel suicidally depressed
Here's thousands
again.
of games to choose from for like nickels. Here, you got a few nickels to rub together. Here, you can buy so many fucking games you wouldn't even want to play all of them.
You can't even touch a video game for a nickel back
Yeah,
then
fucking yeah,
back in
50.
the era,
Yeah,
the golden era of
fifty
video games.
dollars, $50 to buy a fucking Super Nintendo game. Now I just have a fucking a 400 meg zip file that just has all of them.
Yeah, for free. Or it was like $3 to rent them for 3 days.
Yes, and I can play
Fucking
them on a 42-inch fucking screen. A 42-inch TV is old now. 42-inch, that's pathetically small. Meanwhile, back then, a 20-inch TV was so fucking. It would literally weigh like
a,
18 tons. It would be the size of a car.
a color TV. Holy
A
shit!
color.
We got the game's gonna be in
It would be
color.
very washed out color, though. It would be like borderline monochrome.
Yeah,
The
because
dullest
it's
greens you've ever
not
seen.
HD. I remember one of my most fondest memories in my entire fucking life was beating Zelda 3. Zelda A Link to the Past. It was like Sunday morning, sun's just coming up. I left off right before the fucking final boss fight with Ganon. I wake up, beat the game for the first time. Sun is rising, and I'm watching the fucking end credits. And I'm so at peace. I am at peace. I've achieved a state of zen at that point. It's so amazing. It's like a 19 inch, it's a 20-inch TV. I don't think it's 19-inch because that would imply that it's in widescreen. Guess what? They're all 4:3 back then.
Yes.
And it is at least in color though, but the TV's sitting on the floor.
Yeah, that's
TV's on the motherfucking floor of our bedroom.
yeah. It just that's how you had TV. To be honest, I don't think it was even 20-inch. I was think it was more like fucking 16 or 18.
Yeah, no, but back then the TV was gigantic for us, and I remember
It
the
was
first
physically too
NES.
heavy to lift.
Yeah, it was mammoth for us, and of course that's also because the guts of the TV they just go way back. Now we have flat screens.
Yeah, we have our old like 42-inch TV, 42 or 44-inch TV. You can lift it with one arm. Even weaklings like us can do it.
We like
Embarrassingly
skinny,
weak. Adora
straw
Kwai,
arms. We got our
fucking
straw, a drawer
our
quite.
fucking
We can be dry
floppy
heaving.
noodle T-Rex arms can still lift this TV with one fucking arm. And TVs have only gotten like thinner and lighter since then, while being physically larger with a higher
And yeah,
resolution display.
that TV now would cost like $200.
Yes, they sell TVs that are like fucking 50 inches at least
The
for
the
500 bucks.
first TV we ever hooked up our first the NES when we finally owned an NES, and we were pretty late to the game. Everyone else had one before us, but we finally get a fucking NES. It's hooked up to a black and white. It's I wouldn't even call it a 13-inch. It's like smaller than that.
Yeah,
It's
it was like
smaller than
10,
12 inches.
maybe 10.
And the speaker is this giant separate box that's just attached by a little wire
That
with
barely
the little
works. It was
prongs.
shitty quality. I remember one time I actually hooked up the Super Nintendo to a 3-inch black and white TV.
Oh, that's right. It was the little video camcorder
The
TV.
PXL 2000 TV, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember. I remember in particular watching shitloads of episodes of Captain and the Game Master on
Oh,
a fucking little gay TV.
we're
Get
very
away from me!
sidetracked. Are we even going to get to the rest of the
Well,
comics? Because to be honest,
was this,
some of the comics in this in Dark Horse Presents are not even worth talking about.
honestly, the rest of the comic that we were just reading, like nothing happened. It's like, oh, she's on the
Nothing
train.
happens in pretty much all of
Here's some
them.
guys, and they're snarking at each other. Continued next issue. And it's like I don't even care. Nothing
How would
happened
you even
after the
find the
one
next
thing.
issue? Here's the thing, another thing, like I was talking about before, comic book stores are not going to carry this in a subsection of the store where you can go and actually visibly find and identify, here's where Dark Horse Presents back issues are sold. Comic stores do not do that. It's actually not economical for them to do it. So you
Yeah,
can't
if
keep
it
up
was
with all
even
this shit
there,
that's being pumped out.
this probably isn't even a back issue. This is probably something somebody sold. They bought this when it was new. It says it was $7.99 when it was
Yeah,
new.
exactly.
They're not going to have the next issue or the previous issue either.
No, yeah, it's probably literally not even in the store anywhere.
I wouldn't want to read the next part
No,
though.
yeah,
Anyway,
I don't care, and
that was
I don't even
dull.
want to pay $1 for it. And we paid $1 for this. I don't even want to pay $1 for the next issue. I don't give a shit.
But yeah, the next issue or the next story is
Just skim
King's
through the
Road.
rest of these.
It's King's Road. She's fucking female archer. Of course, it's another
Yeah,
female.
that's
I
fine.
don't know if the main character's a female character, but it's like, oh, she's an archer and she didn't get the bullseye. Well, that's going to be a serious fucking story. Let's see. They're just standing around on a field talking on their cell phones, and they're very flat chested. They're a flat chested boar. Oh,
Flat-chested
he
boar,
likes me.
BOAR.
He likes you. What are we? 12. He wants me. Ugh. Oh man. Oh, this is getting risque.
Ooh,
And then okay, and then
in a
they're sitting
fucking
around.
manga, she'd be opening her asshole already for demon babies to be inserted.
While screaming in horrific pain. She'd be in terrible pain, and her body would be getting warped and distended at like inhuman weird angles.
While she's
But
being
she'd still
horse-whipped.
she'd still be alive because she has superpowers. But then she has normal nerve endings.
That's why American comics suck, because they don't do that.
That's why American comics are gay.
Because they're
Okay,
not
then
getting wall-to-wall bitch
she's
raped.
sitting around in a living room with a bunch of guys and a dog. And the dog says, I just started telling Donal about the invasion. I guess the
Donald
dog is
Logue is in
referring to
this
Donal Logue.
comic.
Donal Logue, the classic, wonderful, classic I Love the 80s host.
Yes, remember I Love the 80s?
And also the lead detective in Gotham.
Yes, or not lead detective, but he plays Jim Bullock, or Harvey Bullock.
Harvey, not Jim J. Bullock, but Harvey Bullock.
Yeah, he's actually great in Gotham. Gotham's a really good show.
Well, the thing is, then next thing you know is there's like a gigantic war with fucking werewolves and orcs and fucking the
Is that
the
what
fucking
happens?
red.
I wasn't even skimming it at this point. It flashes back to like a medieval war, and it's like, who gives a fuck?
It's like medieval looking, but it's like they have a now
The
called
art is really
militia.
the art is like too busy too. It's not bad art, but it just sort of like my eyes start going all fucking cross-eyed or something.
The coloring is a little fucking. I don't know.
It's kind
I
of
don't want to be the one to complain
garish
about
pastels
art.
somehow.
It's honestly it's kind of bland. The
Yeah,
coloring doesn't work for the style, and then it's like, oh, the lead sorceress, Militia, and then she just stabs some guy. It's like, oh, they rode out to meet
next,
with her, and then she
next.
stabs a guy, and it's like, oh, I guess her sorcery was knives,
She has the sorcery
and then
power of stabbing someone. Next.
and then they're in the Peach Pit, the fucking diner from 90210,
Ugh.
which is a show I never watched. But unfortunately, because we used to listen to the radio, we know all about the Peach Pit and Melrose
The Peach
Place.
Pit, especially the Peach Pit after dark, which is when things start to get really wild.
Oh man, and then you just some character saying boring, and somebody took a magic marker and circled that like 10 times. What the
Oh
fuck?
no. Is that part of the art, or is that just something I did? Anyways, yeah, just next
Like fucking
comic.
yeah. Next, a dog's life. Is that like a dog's purpose? A dog's
A
purpose.
dog's purpose, the warmest blanket.
Oh, is that the sequel to a dog's purpose?
Yeah, I guess so. The prequel to
Didn't
Mick and
know.
Levy.
I didn't know they were going to make a sequel to A Dog's Purpose. Let's see. Crime Does Not Pay presents City of Roses. Sounds like somebody's trying to rip off Stray Bullets.
Yeah, already. It's like Stray Bullets is a quite an old comic actually. It goes back to like the mid '90s.
Hmm.
In fact, that was
Thing is, though,
self-published too back in the day.
that is more of an example of like how writing would save a setting. Because usually, for me, I'll admit it right up front. I kind of expect like a sci-fi or fantasy setting. If you're going to do a story, it's got to have sci-fi or fantasy. You can set it in any era you want,
What, in comics or in this?
fucking anywhere, but especially in comics, especially in hentai, it's got to
Yeah,
have
yes.
fucking the sex demon king. He's got to have at least some tentacles, and then
Because you
probably
can.
also
Yeah.
a huge cock, a loin lasher,
A
cunt
real
crashing
womb
cock.
destroyer. But yeah, if you're gonna make comics, the best way to do it almost is sci-fi because you are completely unlimited by budget. But the thing is, my favorite comic, my favorite currently existing, current run, fucking out there being published right now comic is Stray Bullets, which is just a crime saga from the early '80s, late '70s.
But the strength of that is characters and dialogue.
Yes.
And you know kind of the like
It
the
does
atmosphere
it
of
does
it.
what
There's an
comics are supposed to
atmosphere
do,
it
which
does
is
right.
have distinct and uniquely interesting characters instead of just stupid quirky characters. There are some quirky characters in a way, but sometimes their quirks are they're addicted to cocaine.
That's a great quirk.
Orson in the newest issues of fucking Stray Bullets, his quirk is that when he starts drinking a lot of vodka, he starts calling himself Derek and he puts on a fake mustache and he acts like a criminal badass and he starts doing really bizarre shit and he's starting to just completely lose his grip on reality because now he's starting to do coke too. And
Oh
and
yeah.
it looks like he's starting to hallucinate things that are very weird and questionable.
See,
Um,
that is actually kind of interesting. And this is
yeah.
just, and it looks like you wrote across the top, edgy cops on the edge. I guess they're getting into the deepening.
Oh yeah, this is the deepening edgy comment. This looks like it's supposed to be taking place in the '70s too, and it's like oh corrupt cops who steal from guys, and the dialogue is really dumb, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be intentionally like a sort of self-parody of like edgy gritty cops drama, or if it really is trying to be serious and it just coming off as retarded.
You want to know what my biggest problem with this would be? Is it says it's already in chapter 5. So
Yeah,
I missed 4 chapters of whatever the fuck they're supposed to be doing.
but what are we really missing? It doesn't look like we're missing anything.
This actually seems to be the most interesting comic. There's no tits, dicks, or guns. Well, there's guns.
There's some tits
There's no
actually.
tits or dicks. Oh, let's see. Let me fucking. Okay,
I
they
think.
break up a pool party. Yeah, okay, but they're not hot.
Yeah,
This art,
the
this
art
art
doesn't
style
have
is
the
really,
sense of the male gaze that fucking
yeah, it's
even
like really
female
scratchy.
artists in fucking manga have a better sense of the male gaze. They have a better male gaze than the cucked faggots in American comics.
Taking care of business. It looks like this is supposed to be set during like the early '80s, maybe the late '70s.
Even American porn comics, unless they're web comics, because they're fucking going off by it. But American porn comics draw way too much by like that superhero style that really doesn't look hot. It looks awkward.
It's also extremely tame.
Yes,
Typically, it tends to be
even
very
when there's
tame.
nudity, it's actually weirdly tame.
If this is, it looks like the very last page. You wrote a comment. If this is supposed to be about retarded cops, it's okay.
What's the next
So
one?
I guess the cops are retards. Uh, really, the fucking article is like there's this nice fucking scene of like this huge house overlooking like a forest and city. It's like, oh, that doesn't look too bad. Some of this doesn't look too bad, but all the characters like they look like they're really like scratchy.
They seem to, they also act like they're supposed to be hyper cliched, and I don't know if they are or not, but even if they are as sort of a parody, it doesn't really sell me on it. It's like, well, whatever, though.
Like it's a supposed to be super edgy episode of fucking
It still seems
fucking
limited. Like if it's a fucking, yeah,
one of
like,
those '70s shows where it's like
yeah, like if it was a
fucking
parody of some 70s
Beretta
cop
or
show like
whatever.
fucking Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah,
But it
yeah. The
doesn't,
next
it looks like it's self-parody on accident. It's not going far enough for it to be parody enough to be funny
See, if you're going
intentionally.
to do something like that, you either have to do kind of like Straight Bullets, which is actually around criminals.
Yeah, it's
That's
that.
centered almost entirely around like the underworld.
Yeah, and that's part of why that's so interesting too.
Or you have to do the deepening.
Yes, which was just straight up fucking parody, but to the point where it was intentionally retarded, and you know it was. Where fucking they're just screaming as they're putting guns to their own heads to do a loyalty test into the gang, man, and then it just starts shooting everyone.
The Chinese crime boss, who's a lady, but she's also got a mustache because she's playing the gruff Chinese crime boss.
Yes, but she has a
Just
mustache that's so not. It's like a fucking
so
handlebar
obviously
mustache. It's
fake.
so obviously glued on, and she's
It's like,
very cute.
and it's the same fucking mustache that the fucking other guy, the other cop has.
Yes,
The
that's
other
right. They're
fake
fucking.
mustache. And they're just, it's like they're switching mustaches cut to cut.
And they
It's like, what
they
the fuck's
start
going
like
on?
doing coke and shooting heroin and shit. Like the bottom's always dropping out in the deepening, and just fucking the rookie cop is like, "What's going on?" He's like crying and shit, and it's just and the
But he
camera
has a
and
character,
zooms are so great.
but then he has a character arc because by the end of the fucking episode, he's like, "Yeah, I guess I'll be back next week."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's starting to get in the
The, the
deepening. I was
deepening.
like,
If you it's on YouTube. If you just look for the deepening on YouTube, I'm pretty sure it's by the Duncan brothers, and I'm pretty sure it's still up there.
and it's way better than a lot of these shitty superhero.
Yes, and it's only like 2 minutes long or something.
Here, we're only still on page 57, but here
Well, we're
it's
almost
the
done then.
next.
What's the next?
We're almost done with this dog shit. Into the Past, Part Two. Oh, great! It's not even Part One, so I have no idea. We're just cutting in. There's one of the ghosts from fucking Fern Gully or some shit is in a hammock, and he's saying, "What you ask is impossible," and it's just like it looks like one of those fucking Savage Lands
Just
worlds or
skip this
something.
one. Just next.
Looks like he used to be the Atom. He's
Just
got a
no, yeah. Just
superhero.
skip
He's
this.
got
This
his
is supposed to
superhero.
be like psychedelic superhero shit. There. That's the there. I just summed it up. Go to the next comic.
You know what? Yeah, I'm skimming through it. You've just perfectly described it. He's wearing a fucking
It's
bed
like
sheet. It's
almost
like a fucking.
ironic
It's like a
comic book
picnic
hipster
towel.
superhero psychedelic intentionally. Fuck it. It's just really bland. Oh, that's right. And then he travels back in time, and he's hanging out with Sherlock Holmes, and so it's just no.
Probably the same Sherlock Holmes from the new TV show, where
No, but it's ancient
everything's just
Sherlock
solved by
Holmes though,
the
because he's
what?
traveling back
Bane?
through time.
He meets the Bane version of Sherlock Holmes, so he's got
The burn version, but no, just skip to the next
this
fucking comic.
fucking. But yeah, he whips off fucking. Yeah, it's a picnic blanket It fucking ties it around him like a cape and then flies through the air while crazy shit things are happening. But it's just not interesting.
It's like I said, super psychedelic superhero, and then he fucking travels back in time like
Then
almost on
yeah,
accident to meet Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, he travels back to the steampunk era, but there's no steampunk clockwork machine. So now the next issue backward to the future, and it's like, oh boy, it's very the art is very stylized, like it's going from a shitload of different like things.
Not good enough for me anymore, though.
Next comic doesn't even tell what it's called on the first page; it just says Chicago 1958.
I want to be fucking entertained by these too, but it's like, and they're taking these like it's like a unique idea, but they're finding a way to make it bland. I don't even
I
know
admit,
how, to be honest. I don't
yeah,
understand it myself. It's so mysterious, and I have nightmares of making comics that are end up like this, that are just so who gives a shit.
you're trying so hard to tell a story,
Yeah, that's
and
what
the only
these people look
and you
like. They're
just end
trying
up
so
boring
hard to be unique. They're like, look how unique and crazy we're getting, and then it's just not. It's like you traveled back in time to meet Sherlock Holmes. That's not fucking unique or interesting, really. It's done to death at this point. I've seen that in TNG episodes. It tended not to be that interesting in that either.
it was more interesting when Data was Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, it's a computer created an opponent capable of defeating Data, so it literally creates an AI that almost destroys the ship.
Somehow magically wills an AI into
Yes.
creation, even
How
though
did you do that? I don't know. It just
the
did.
computer's not supposed to be capable of even doing that to itself, but somehow it made one on the holodeck.
Yes.
And then 5 seasons later, they actually have to.
Yeah, they have to bring him back where he's just Professor Moriarty is now actually just a completely regular person who just wants to get married and leave the ship.
And they can't, so they have to fucking. That was almost a dark episode. That was a great
Yeah,
episode.
actually
You
they're
know what
both those
isn't?
are both pretty good episodes. I don't know what I was talking about.
This also has kind of a weird art style where it's like using the fucking like sound effects and the fucking
Yeah, the
fonts and
sound
shit.
effects are visually like there's sploosh as shows as like running. It looks like it's a part of the running water and that
Yeah,
kind of shit.
He's standing at like the top of a sewer
The art
runoff
in
or
this is
something.
creative. See, that's one of the advantages I imagine of Dark Horse Presents is that you can experiment better with your comics, but it's like you could do that with a web comic though.
And then, but the whole thing kind of almost looks like a fucking yeah. It's like yeah, it said it was 1948, but that kind of fucking super alien laser UFO gun or some fucking shit, and points it at the fucking demons. They're like undead demon things or something, and
In
then
the 19 in the late 1940s, and then at the end he kills or like a demon explodes, and then it turns out to be the guy he was looking for, who's just some scrawny weird dude, and he's like, is he dead? And I don't know. The end.
is that what happens? Because right now I'm scanning through it still, and it's like turns into a huge demon, busts through the ground, blows up a whole fucking city block, and it's giant
Yeah, I just
winged
spoiled it for you.
Satan, giant winged Satan thing, and it's fucking holy shit! It's so fucking huge, insane. It's blowing up the whole fucking city, and then it blows up. I think he shoots it in the eye or something. No, he threw something in its eye, and it blows up.
Oh, so
And then yeah, it
that's how
turns
he
into the
stopped it.
guy.
He
It
stopped the
turns into the
demons.
guy. It turns into the guy that he was looking for. Picture of the guy he was
He
looking
rips
for.
up this photograph of the guy he's looking for. That's him, and then walks away, and that's literally the last page of the comic. And is like, so what was happening? I don't know.
And then you wrote a little caption here just saying, "Is he dead?" And that is the ultimate question: Is he dead? Is the guy he was looking for dead? Is
A
everyone
giant
dead?
part of the
What just
city's like
happened?
blown up. It's pretty decent art, but it's like what exactly is happening though? I can't really tell. That's another thing about indie comics and comics like these is that they get so experimental that they're like, we're not even gonna tell stories. Coherently, that's the next level of storytelling in comics. Is that we're gonna just leave it too vague for you to really know what's happening when really a true master of storytelling makes it completely clear what's happening at all points. I mean, that's one of the reasons actually why like fucking Hemingway is considered such a great writer because you have no questions about what just happened. It's very straightforward, plain almost to a fault, except it's intentional. Like he knew exactly what he was doing. He's like, I'm gonna
Well,
make
at the
this as
same
plain
time,
as
though,
possible. Here's the guy with the machine gun. He's laying on his stomach. He's gonna bleed to death while he's gonna shoot people who are coming at him. It's just straightforward. But
he's in a
then,
tank and he's screaming, "I'm Ernest Goddamn Hemingway. Fuck you."
yes, yes, there's also that. Wasn't that from
But
a
yeah, at
comic?
the end, what?
Wasn't that from a webcomic?
Yeah,
See, that's
or
another example.
some kind of
People
webcomic.
making
Yeah,
webcomics are still doing better than people who are doing print comics because they can experiment, but they can also experiment back into coherency again. Instead of experimenting into incoherency like the people experimenting in print comics are, the people experimenting in webcomics are making shit like Tails Gets Trolled, legit genius comics. You're never going to see that in Dark Horse
legitimately.
Presents.
You do kind of have to admit the pressure is off with a webcomic because it's just
And that's what
whatever
makes it better.
the
I think
creator wants to make.
taking the pressure off is kind of where a real genius can fucking come from.
Well, you can either be take the pressure off and create something that's like really original and fun, and allow the reader to get an opportunity to read the backstory, or else you just meander. You could be the one who makes the next Tales get trolled, or you might end up making the next questionable
Yeah,
content.
and you don't want that. Question. That's the thing. It's that it's sort of like the bell curve, where it has the highest highs, but also has the lowest lows.
Yeah, fucking questionable
So,
content.
so
Worse than
web
anything,
comics are like the white people of comics,
which is the best comics, which is the best.
but also
White
the
people
worst.
do it like a white man.
Yes, do
But at
with an ISO file. Do it like a
the
white
final
man.
page actually says the name of the fucking comic. Hunter Quaid in Armageddon Outta
Yeah,
Here.
I thought that was a little funny because it's just like he's leaving at the end. He's like, "Oh fuck
This one
this! I'm not
seems
dealing with
yeah, this
demons."
one seems to be like it was the most kind of fun, but at the
Yeah,
same time still I have no idea what just happened and
yeah.
I don't really care.
Sadly, that's pretty much the best this Dark Horse Presents gets. I mean, a couple were sort of interesting too, but not 7.99 interesting, and to be honest, not really a dollar's worth of interesting either, because none of them have enough space to get anywhere.
Here's this. This is apparently the worst, and yeah, I don't even want to go through this. You did write a caption.
Yeah, this is by the
Surprising
guy
is the
who I
worst.
used to kind of respect him. He's the guy who does fucking Too Much Coffee, man. So I was like, oh, cool. And then when I actually read it, it's like, oh, this is just really fucking. It just way up its own ass of fucking dumb bullshit.
Says Shannon Papa Wheelie,
Yeah.
and it's called Villain House Blind Mole Rat King.
And it was like, okay, I thought it was going to be like just kind of like a sort of goofing around fun, and turns out it's almost like fuck you, Tea Partiers, man, or some
Yeah,
shit.
it's basically like a commercial for the belief in communism as opposed to the actual practice of communism, and it's literally what the first page is. It's fucking guy saying, "I hate that mole guy. He's evil," and then this other guy says he's starting a reading program for kids and is fixing their healthcare system.
So the mole guy, basically the mole king is like the good guy, but our heroes are actually the bad guys. It's like if I'm going to compare this to another webcomic, a very obscure one, Troll Police, where the protagonists are like villain protagonists, except it's not as aware, either self-aware or just aware of objective
Well,
reality.
that comic that you just referenced is way more clever than this.
That's true. That's very true.
But yeah, I especially love the implication of fixing the healthcare system. Like, oh, the problems with the healthcare system. That's the easiest thing to do. All you have to do is make taxpayers pay for healthcare, and then it's fixed. And it's like that's not how it works in real life. But you'd have to
The
actually
worst
know
healthcare
something.
systems on the planet do that. The worst
You,
healthcare systems.
if you knew anything, if you had ever worked a day in your life, you'd know that.
Yes. If you've ever seen any fucking story about the healthcare system in Canada or the UK, you know that people are waiting a year for an MRI. But meanwhile, in America, you pay for the MRI yourself, but you get it within a day or two.
And it's the highest quality treatment too.
Yes.
America has the highest quality of medical care on planet Earth, and people from these socialist shitholes come here to get their treatment, especially dictators from third world shitholes.
But also, when you say third world shitholes, sometimes that means Mexico, sometimes that means the Middle East or Africa, sometimes it also means Canada.
Yes, Canada is basically a failed state.
Canadian leaders are literally coming to the United States of America to get health care because American health care is better than Canadian health care
They don't
because
even
it's
have a
socialized health care.
functioning military. We have to basically pay to keep their country safe. They don't pay shit
Which we really
money for
shouldn't.
their military.
To be
Yeah,
honest, the only
that would
reason why
actually
they're
be
safe is
very
because they're next to our country. They're fucking
that
on
would be
top of it.
extremely amusing if someone decided to invade Canada and we're like, you know what? You should have put some money into your fucking defense
Just
spending
started
instead of
slaughtering Canadians, just
your failed
massacring.
national free healthcare system that doesn't even.
Well, that might start happening, but from the inside, like Canada might start getting like just jihad, beheaded,
Well,
slaughtered.
they're already having feminists basically coming in, and just a lot of the rape hysteria. It's like as bad as America might seem, it's
Feminists are
always worse in
creating a rape
Canada and the
state.
UK.
Feminists are creating the rape state that they all secretly, subconsciously desire, while they say that they don't want it. But they blame white men for it, and then they import the people who are going to actually cause the real rapes. They falsely accuse white men of rape, and then they import the Muslim men who are going to cause real rapes.
Anyway, then you have
That gives
Catholics
away
here.
everything that
Asians.
feminists secretly desire. All their fucking darkest, unspoken desires are out in the open when you realize that.
Oh no, spoilers. So then you wrote down the captions here, page 100 million dead, but lol, commie paranoia red and is scared the real war was a PR war. The revolution was all about getting the facts to lose frame. And then also I noticed like the mole people that they're invading the mole people place. Google Maps says we're through the wall. They all look like Jews.
The
Is
mole
that is
people.
that is that intentional or is that not? And the
I
the
have no
villain
idea.
is a black guy too. The villain is a giant black or the villain or rather the hero whatever who's like volcano guy in tracksuit and he's a black guy. Huh? What's that about?
But it's done in that very cartoony, like Too Much Coffee Man style too. Um,
I don't remember that. I
yeah,
don't know what
that's
that
weird.
even
To be
is.
honest, I don't know what that's about. I don't know what
What
all
is
the.
that
There's a
about?
lot of mentions in the comic of communism because the heroes or villain protagonist, whatever, are like, oh, they hate commies so much. The commies, they're the worst evil. This and the Mole King is communist, so they drill down to the Mole King's kingdom and they beat him up, and then they cause the war. That they're like, oh, and all this war is happening now. Now we gotta go for, which is
They
like,
vote.
let me guess, a statement
They
about the
elect a
Iraq War.
leader. They elect a leader that apparently they didn't have a democratically elected leader before, but now they have free elections, so they vote for somebody, and the fucking guy. It's almost like it's a fucking 9/11 Iraq War, man. Which again, the fucking narrative on that was so wrong, so misinterpreted.
And it won. The narrative on the false narrative on Iraq basically won.
Yep, we couldn't even fucking the fake news succeeded.
Yeah, the fake news basically won the false narrative war as far as pretty much everything from the Bush era. So even people who are like for Gamergate and being like, "Oh, the media's lying to us," they'll still believe every single media lie they've been told about the entire everything from the entire 2000s.
Apparently, the biggest problem is that the left just hasn't gotten the message out yet. So it's a good thing that this comic managed to fucking shoehorn in
Yeah,
another leftist
that's
message.
another thing about comics is that if you're going to make a comic reinforcing a false narrative that half the country has already swallowed the bullshit on is really a complete waste of time, but that's what most print comics are fucking doing. Even superhero comics from the good era, they were still doing that too. They weren't doing any better. So if you go back to the 90s, if you revert comics to what they were back in the 90s, you're not going to make comics any better. You're just going to make them pretty much about the same
But
level
anyway,
of generic bullshit.
the last or like issue preview for the next issue. Guess what's going to be in the next issue? Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, which
Like,
has its
wasn't
own
there a
comic.
TV? Wasn't there fucking T? Yeah, first off, it already has its own comic. Secondly, wasn't there a TV show that ran for 15 years about that? Do you
And
do you
then a
really not?
spin-off. It had a spin-off too that ran for like another 6 or 7.
Yeah, do we
Angel.
really need more of those?
It was called
We really,
Angel, in
really
fact.
don't need more of those.
No, but I think it just sucks in. You make a fucking comic and it will just suck in people. It's like, oh, I really love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Therefore, and that was a Joss Whedon show too. Joss Whedon.
Dross Whedon,
So
and
yeah,
then
that's
there's
pretty
also going
much
to be
we covered all of Dark Horse Presents. Probably too much.
fucking another story from Nexus, Trekker, and King's Road.
Anyways, in a few minutes, apparently, after the stream ends, Ethan Van Sciver's going to do a live stream with Diversity in Comics, apparently, or they're going to try to. So,
That might be cool, but not as cool as the
yeah,
so after you're done
the best stream
getting
of
your fill of the best stream ever, get ready for a fairly mediocre stream.
yes, you've already listened to the best stream of this day. Now you can consider listening to a not as good stream. Good job. So, anyways, make sure to like, share, subscribe, unlike, unsubscribe, unshare, unlike, relike,
Donate to our
unlike, and
Patreon.
relike, and then unlike.
Donate to our Patreon. Definitely don't undonate to our
Yes,
Patreon
don't
ever.
donate. For real, give us money just for these stupid ass fucking videos. Give us real life money and continue giving us real life money, and then we will blame you whenever
We're
our
not
audio cuts
creating
out.
original. We are not creating original content with your money.
No, we're just using it to pay the electricity bill.
I'll use it to justify having purchased the Mad Max video game that I am now going to play.
And also sometimes a fucking RB cheddar melt
Oh man, I could go for fucking cheddar, a big ass fucking a huge ass taco, extra big ass taco with
with
extra
more
molecules.
molecules.
All right, that's it.
Yeah, there. And just, yeah, for real though,
And this
donate to
and
our
this thing
Patreon.
goes in the trash. I'm not even gonna rip it up. I'm just gonna throw it in the garbage.
Also donate to our Ko-fi. For real. The Ko-fi or coffee. Just, it's like $2. You
Coffee
can
and
send us $2. You can just do that once if you want. It goes to me. We would love to create original content, by the way. We have tons of comics better than any comic you've ever read in your entire life, just waiting to be made. But as it is, the comic that I'm trying to get made right now is going to be drawn by Cool Mod, so I'm hoping it comes out this year. It might not. And I don't really have enough money still to pay another artist. Like, if I paid him $50 per page, I would get one page done a month. So in 2 years, a comic would be made. It would be nice to have it. I would like to find another artist. I still have I have a lot of trouble just finding artists.
It
But
wouldn't. It would be nice if the system or the industry was set up to foster new ideas and new creative minds.
I think a
But it
lot
is.
of people don't care much about comics anyways, but if they do, they kind of only care about Japanese. The
It's because they're.
majority of
It's
comics
because
readers read Japanese comics.
comics are so infantile. Nobody's looking to elevate the medium but us.
Yes. Only us. Pretty much only us. Nobody else. So
And on
yeah,
that subject, go listen. Now you can go listen to fucking
yes.
diversity in comics.
And smash the motherfucking like button and just send us money. I don't even care about saying donate Patreon, blah, blah, blah. Just send us money any way you possibly can. Who gives a shit? Now get out of here.